All right, everybody, we're ready. Okay, I guess that means Ben's ready. Your Ben Joravsky show for Tuesday, June 18th is just moments away. But before we get into that, Ben. Yeah.
Ooh, whoa.
I'm turning your mic off. But before we get into that, we would like to thank the following unions for jumping on board and bringing back the Ben Joravsky Show. First up, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 in District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. A big thank you to those unions for jumping on board and helping bring back the Ben Joravsky Show. And, of course, today's program is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. The Ben Joravsky Show starts now. It is Tuesday, June 18th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, Illinois State Rep Rob Bartwick will join us. It's Kristen Kaza of the Chicago Reader, and we welcome to our new studio, Jerry Brown and Tom Shepard, the South Side political know-it-alls. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling it Got Scoop Tuesday. And here's why. Great weekend. Do you have a good weekend, D?
Yes, I did. It was great. Great weekend.
Yeah,
Weekend's over, dude.
Well, I had a great weekend. I saw the movie A Late Night, which I recommend to all. Run, Don't Walk. Go see it. Very funny. Mindy Kaling. Shout out to Mindy Kaling.
Hey, Mindy.
All right. She can really write a good script. I was up late reading Band of Brothers by Stephen Ambrose. Great book. It's a read, don't sleep book. Get it? Walk, don't run. Read, don't sleep, because I'm up late reading it, all right? Got a million of them, D.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you. And then I woke up today, and what did I discover? I got scooped. Not once, but twice. How about that, D? Scoop. You know what scoop means? Scoop means in journalism that someone beat you to the story that you should have had first. In this case, trashing Lori Lightfoot. Now, I'm very proud of the fact, D, that I think I was the first writer in the city of Chicago to trash Mayor Rahm, all right? I was number one out of the gate trashing Mayor Rahm. But I'm not number one out of the gate anymore. I was scooped by Fran Spielman of the Sun-Times and Christian McQuarrie of the Tribune. Two reporters scooped me, D.
And one of them a Tribune writer.
Oh, no, scooped by the Tribunal. The shame, the shame. Anyway, both Christian McQuarrie of the Chicago Tribune and Fran Spielman of the Chicago Sun-Times criticized Lori Lightfoot for going all Hollywood on us. Hold on, D.
What are you doing?
Hold on.
What's this?
Hold on.
He's grabbing his bag.
Yeah.
A play-by-play here. Takes a pair of sunglasses out of his bag. And puts his headphones back on.
Oh, how do you do it?
Oh,
God. There we go. She went all Hollywood, like me with these sunglasses, D. Lori went Hollywood. Yeah, she went Hollywood. What did she do? Well, she literally went to Hollywood for a fundraiser, but then this weekend she flew to New York, and she appeared on the Steve Colbert Show. Now, it's big news when a mayor from the city of Chicago goes to New York, appears on the Steve Colbert Show or any national TV show, D, and the Sun-Times, my beloved bright one, had it well covered, okay?
You see that paper, downloaders?
All right. Everybody see that? Lynn Sweet. They took Lynn Sweet out of Washington. She's usually in Washington. They moved her. They sent her to New York for the day to hang out with Steve Colbert and watch Lori Lightfoot. All right.
Lucky her.
Yeah, I know. Lucky. I wish I got that assignment. And here's what she wrote. I was in the audience for the taping, but as a condition for letting me in, I had to agree not to reveal any direct content ahead of the Thursday evening telecast on CBS. Man, they were tough bargains at the Steve Colbert Show. What would have happened if she had just broken the agreement? Well, they never would have let her back. Jail. That's it. You're going to jail. But I can tell you what I observed during the segment, which runs about 6 minutes. The audience of about 400 in the Ed Sullivan Theater, where Colbert is taped, gave Lightfoot a standing ovation after Colbert introduced Brewster. How about that, D? A standing ovation. They laughed at his jokes and her jokes. Colbert, a Northwestern University graduate and Second City alum, relied on his knowledge from living in Chicago for years to help inform his questions, and the conversations at times took a serious turn. So there you go. Coverage from Lynn Sweet of Lori Lightfoot being on the Steve Colbert Show, all right?
Pretty positive.
Yeah, well, that was Lynn Sweet. I didn't get scooped by Lynn Sweet. I got scooped by Fran Spielman and Christian McQuarrie, who ripped Lori.
Not sweet.
That's good. Rip Lori for going to New York. Now, there's generally two schools of thoughts when it comes to mayors going to New York City. On one hand, we have like the second city syndrome where we're just bursting with pride. You know, I must be important if the mayor that I elected or voted for is on the Steve Colbert Show. That's a typical Chicagoan. I'm so happy. It's like Stevie Wonder in that song, Living for the City. New York City, just like I pictured it. Skyscrapers and everything. That's kind of, but you do know that song?
Yeah.
Like, it's a good imitation, don't you think?
No.
Anyway, that's on the other one hand. On the other hand, we're like kind of insulted. Like, oh, look who thinks she's better than us going to New York City and hanging out with Stephen Colbert. What? It's not good enough to hang around in Chicago? Are you going all Hollywood on us?
Boy, you live streamers get one hell of a show. Downloaders, you're missing out.
You're missing out, downloaders. You don't get to see me in my sunglasses going all Hollywood. Anyway, that's kind of the attitude. It's pretty much summed up. Brilliant sentence by Fran Spielman. I got to give her a lot of credit. Right here in the Sun-Times. Wish I wrote this sentence. She's comparing Lori Lightfoot to Rahm Emanuel. Rahm Emanuel's nonstop travel, fundraising, and celebrity schmoozing, often on a Hollywood scene, dominated by his super agent brother, was one of the biggest pet peeves about his 8-year tenure. What former Mayor Richard M. Daley knew in his soul, but Emanuel never took to heart, is that Chicagoans believe the sun rises and sets in Chicago. They want their mayors to stay home and focus on local problems. Focus, Lori, focus on local problems. So anyway, D, am I going to join the criticism? Am I going to join the criticism?
I'm wondering.
I'm going to hold back for the moment for two reasons. One, I have a general rule. I wait.
Number one.
You generally wait, sorry.
I generally wait, for I give them a honeymoon before I start ripping them, all right? Now, I gave Rahm 3 months before I started ripping them, all right? So what's it? Is it a month yet with Lori?
Well, that Lincoln Yards thing came out, right? You were kind of...
Yeah, I think I... You're right. I just broke my own rule.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did. I criticized her for green-lighting a multi-billion-dollar TIF deal. But, I'm kind of easy on her when it comes to being on the Steve Colbert Show. But the second reason, D, you know why?
Number two.
Been drinking that Lori Lightfoot
Jesus.
Kool-Aid. Hold on, guys. That Lori Lightfoot Kool-Aid is delicious, man. Hey, if she wants to go on the Stephen Colbert Show, come on, guys. Let her go on the Stephen Colbert Show. But that Lincoln Yards deal, oh, no.
I forgot about it.
I'm watching you. What, isn't it Robert De Niro? I am watching you. Remember that? I am watching you. I am watching you. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. And we got a great show today, everybody. Rob Markwick will be here, state representative from the Northwest Side, maybe soon to be state senator. Ooh. At 2 o'clock, Kristen Kaiser's coming in. She's going to be talking about the block party, the Reader Block Party. And then get ready, Chicago. The South Side political know-it-alls will be here right in this studio. Jerry Brown and Tom Shepard, get your pens and papers out. We're going to the South Side politics, D. All right?
You are pumped.
I'm pumped up for the South Side political. They know everything about side. I might give Jerry Brown a little trivia contest about South Side Alderman, see if he can handle
Oh,
it.
there's something new. Ben Joravsky giving guest trivia questions.
Get ready, Jerry Brown.
Whoa.
Don't duck, don't dodge. Southside political know-it-alls will be tested on the Ben Joravsky Show. So we got a great show today. A lot of political talk. Markwick can talk some serious politics, D. I'm going to ask Rob Markwick what he thinks about Lori Lightfoot going to New York City. Actually, Rob's really trying to be nice to Lori Lightfoot these days. Lori, start being nicer to Rob Markwick, okay? He's a good guy. Don't hold a grudge forever and ever. We'll talk about that later. Anyway.
And he did kind of help you get elected.
He take kind of out of that sentence. He did help you get elected. So stop being so mean to Rob Markwick. All right, Lori Lightfoot. Anyway, we got a great show today, and I can't wait to get started. But before we do, the doctor has the news.
Not a doctor. How's it going, everybody? I'm Dennis. It's the middle of the day. Let's talk about the national news happening this afternoon. Actually, before we do that, shout out to the millennial Kyle. He is on the Facebook video live stream.
Holy Kyle.
That's you, Kyle, the Mueller report bit. That's all because of you.
I love the Mueller report, by the way. You can look at any page in the Mueller report and see what sleazy stuff your president of the United States is doing.
Kyle says, my favorite things about going Hollywood in Ben's mind are wearing sunglasses and going to New York City.
I know, Kyle. That's the wrong... Wait, hold on, Kyle.
All right.
Hollywood.
There are people who download this show.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Now you can't see you do all this.
Hollywood.
Okay.
Hollywood swing.
Tonight, President Donald J. Trump is kicking off his re-election campaign. You hear that, Ben? The calm before the storm.
Oh, my God.
Tonight's Trump rally will be taking place in Orlando, Florida. So, yes, it does look like the NASCAR championship is happening in Orlando at the moment. Thousands of Trump supporters are gathered in support of the Donald in 2020. Some have been camped outside since Monday morning.
You're kidding.
No.
Somebody camped out to see Donald Trump?
Yeah, it's like he's like Van Halen now. Trump tweeted
People
Monday.
Camp out to see Van Halen?
Van Halen with David Lee Roth. I don't know about Hagar, but Trump tweeted Monday that there had been more than 100,000 requests for tickets and that large screens and food trucks will be on hand for those who can't get inside. That's nice.
Oh, that's really nice of him.
Monday night, Trump made sure to fire up his base beforehand by, of course, going to Twitter and... Yep, it's election season. He stated that he's ready to begin deporting, quote, millions of illegal aliens from the U.S. He said that next week, ICE will begin the process of removing the millions of illegal aliens who have illicitly found their way into the United States. They will be removed as fast as they come in. Ben Joravsky, was that a threat from our president?
That was a threat from our president. You know, Rob Markwick is judge. We're going to bring him in for the general conversation, but Donald Trump was doubling down on this strategy of trying to scare his base into staying loyal to him by being even nastier and meaner to immigrants, most of whom who are no problem whatsoever to anybody roughly resembling someone in Donald Trump's base. I never understand this, why people in North Dakota or South Dakota, Rob Markwick, which is this two enormous vacant states, which could use people living in them, would be upset about immigrants coming into this country across the border, the southern border. I do not understand this. Perhaps you can help me out on this one, Rob Markwick.
I can't help you out on that one at all, Ben. I'm as confused as you are. I'm like, I love how you look at me like you must have the answers, Rob. Ben, I got a lot of answers on that one. I'm befuddled as you are. I mean, really, like, what is the plan? And I get it. I mean, you always play to your base, and unfortunately, and I mean this for our country, what Donald Trump has done in terms of developing his base is about ripping through the fabric of what made America America, and it's terrible. And I guess that he's going to double down on that strategy. But as you said, why do people in North Dakota care about immigration? For the life of me, I don't know. But he's been able to get them to care about it.
He's been able to get them to care. So he's, like I said, he's doubling down on this one with these threats. And meanwhile, he's rattling the sabers. I don't know if this is part of your update. Am I getting ahead of your update?
I don't know what you're talking about.
With Iran, he's threatening war with Iran, and having ripped up the peace treaty, or excuse me, the nuclear treaty that Obama had negotiated with Iran. He's now rattling the sabers, as they say. So all of this, I suppose, is no coincidence. Talking war with Iran, threatening to kick immigrants out of this country and send them back wherever they came from. I guess this is what his campaign is going to be all about.
Ben, doesn't it make you long for the days when sitting elected officials would round up their base by going around to some ribbon cuttings and marching in parades?
Yeah.
Holy moly.
I know. It's a different country, politically speaking. So anyway.
And meanwhile, a handful of folks looking to stop the nonsense in a year or so have responded to the president's tweets with their own tweets. Yes, it's time for a 2020 Democratic presidential candidate update. First up, it's candidate and New York Mayor Bill de Blasio. Ben, I don't recall. What are your thoughts on de Blasio?
Well, actually, I gotta I'm rethinking making my thoughts on Bill de Blasio. There was a very good column about this in the New York Times today. Urge everyone to read it, by Michelle Goldberg. Stop sneering at de Blasio. And I'm you finish what you were saying, and then I'll riff on de Blasio.
Live stream chatters. I'm sure they'll love that. Ben warming up to Bill de Blasio. That'll be great. I love it, the Biden stuff too, you know?
I'm not saying I'm going to vote for Bill de Blasio. I have my issues with Bill de Blasio. But you know me, D, when everybody starts jumping aboard one bandwagon, I go the other way, okay? Everybody goes this way, I tend to go that way. So everybody's ripping Lori Lightfoot today by going to New York City. Drinking that Lori Kool-Aid.
Oh,
Hold on,
yeah,
D.
get a sip real quick. Yeah, there you go. There we go. That. Live stream loves that too. All right, de Blasio said, quote, so at real Donald Trump, who will be left to do all of that, quote, side work at your country club?
Who?
Bill de Blasio.
Oh, he's ripping him. All right, now is that the Bill de Blasio update?
That's still Bill de Blasio.
All right, my issue with Bill de Blasio has to do with the fact that he was so eager, so thirsty to welcome Amazon to New York City and give them a whole bunch of money that they didn't need. And he was tag teaming with Cuomo, Governor Cuomo of New York. So that's where I split from him. But the bashing of de Blasio that goes on in this country, I'm going to share you this quote from, let's see, do I have it right here? Where's that great quote? I can't find it at the moment. But the bashing of de Blasio, where he's sort of like this geek, everybody's making fun of him. I just think it's kind of unwarranted. My problem with Bill de Blasio is that he left his progressive roots when he tried to woo Amazon to New York City by offering them billions of dollars they didn't deserve. So I'm not going to look. They didn't get Amazon. Amazon decided not to go there, thanks to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez leading the rebellion. So I'm going to let up on de Blasio for a little bit.
Washington State Governor and climate action champion Jay Inslee tweeted, and I think he nailed it here. He said, Donald Trump kicks off his re-election campaign just like he launched his first run, with a racist attack on immigrants meant to divide us.
Yeah, absolutely. That sums it all up.
Mm-hmm. And Steve Bullock, the Democratic governor of Montana, tweeted, we will not let him use cruel threats to divide us. That sounds great when you hear it first, but when I think about it, or 2 seconds, okay, yeah, so that's that.
Yeah, well, that's pretty gutsy for the guy from Montana, because Trump took Montana.
Right.
So standing up to Trump from someone in Montana is a little different than standing up to Trump from someone, say, Illinois or California or state of Washington. So.
And finally, Joe Biden, no response to report here. This update is about the other thing Joe Biden loves to do, raise funds.
Yeah,
Boy,
he's
been
pretty
fundraising
good.
like crazy lately. Our Democratic 2020 frontrunner Joe Biden held a fundraiser in New York City last night. He's doing 3 more today. Biden suggested that his presidential campaign has taken in close to $20 million already. The Washington Post writes this morning, offering a glimpse of his fundraising prowess in the early stages of the crowded Democratic primary. Biden says he's raised money from 360,000 donors with an average contribution of $55. Last night's event was at the Upper East Side home of one Jim Chanos, or Chanos, not sure, president and founder of Kanikos Associates, a prominent short-selling investment firm. And it says here, Elizabeth Warren weighed in to rip him.
She ripped Joe Biden, not Trump. Okay.
She sent out an email and threw out a little jab in response to Biden's fundraiser, saying, quote, I don't spend time at fancy fundraisers. Instead, I spend my time meeting voters and thanking grassroots donors who chip in what they can. Donate $3 to my campaign, and you might just get a call from me to say thank you.
Yeah. We're heading into Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton 2016 country with this stuff. And listen, I don't blame the base, the Democratic Party base, for being irritated when they see Joe Biden or Pete Buttigieg, or who's the other one that goes to New York a lot to raise money, raising money from the centrists, if you will, the billionaires of Wall Street, the millionaires of Wall Street, because the fear is that if you take the money from Wall Street, then you're going to do their bidding when it comes to oversight laws that regulate the economy, regulate banking, etc. So I don't blame the base of the Democratic Party for being irritated. My advice to Joe Biden is like my advice that I always used to give to the bums who lived in the Bowery, Rob Martwick. When they gave you some whiskey to vote for the man, just go into the polling booth, vote for whoever you want to, and then drink the whiskey. So if they're going to give Joe Biden the money, it doesn't mean he has to do their bidding.
That's right.
That's my advice.
Now, of course, we'll keep you posted on these stories as today's program rolls along. Don't go anywhere, because coming up after this short little break, we're going to find out what's going on locally. We're going to find out what else is news. It's the Ben Joravsky Show. Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yes, indeed, we are live from the Chicago Sun-Times. Rod Markwick in the studio with me. We're going to bring him on for the full interview in about 5 minutes or so. But he may chip in and say this or that as Dennis takes the deep dive on the local news.
Yes, we're about to find out what's going on locally. It's time for What Else is News. Ben, you good on that Lightfoot Kool-Aid?
Oh, yeah,
Get a refill. Get a refill. Mayor Lightfoot goes to New York City. More on that in a moment. But first, Ben, I know you love her, but we have to at least try to keep her honest, all right? The following comes from WBEZ News, Chicago, and one Chip Mitchell.
Chip Mitchell. What did Chip have to say?
The article is titled, Candidate Lightfoot Vowed to Release Laquan Cover-Up Records. Mayor Lightfoot is refusing. All right, here's Chip Mitchell. As a candidate for Chicago Mayor, Lori Lightfoot called on the city to release the records from its investigation into how the police department handled Officer Jason Van Dyke's shooting of teenager Laquan McDonald. That investigation was run by Joseph Ferguson, the city's inspector general, who has warned that, quote, the full story about the shooting is still not known. For months, Ferguson has been pushing the city to release the records. Candidate Lightfoot agreed. Here's a quote from Lightfoot. It's absolutely critical, she told WBEZ in March, that they be fully released in their entirety, including all the attachments and the evidence. Now Lightfoot is mayor, and her administration is denying Open Records' request for the material, citing legal restrictions, but pledging to try and get those restrictions removed. Now here's a part of the written statement from the Lightfoot administration on this. I'll read this, and Ben, you just weigh in with your thoughts. The quote here, quote, she agrees that documents implicating a matter of significant public policies such as these should be made available in a timely manner and in accordance with the law. The mayor's intention to release them has not wavered. She has directed her team to work as quickly as possible to bring forward changes to the law that can allow for greater transparency on high-profile cases like this one and whenever the public has a right to know. Okay, now with the time we have left here. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
All right, listen, here's my deal. I can drink buckets of Lori Lightfoot Kool-Aid, but I'm not going to paper this one over. I can allow her to enjoy going to New York City and hanging out with Stephen Colbert. I don't think that's that bad, but this is a very important issue in my mind's eye. She championed on being a transparent mayor. She campaign on doing things differently than Mayor Rahm. So their argument is that a judge is restricting them from releasing these documents that talk about what went down with the Laquan McDonald investigation, that give insight on what went down in the Laquan McDonald investigation. Then go to court and try to get the judge's ruling lifted. You should really fight for transparency, in my humble opinion. And I've seen so many mayors do this. As soon as they get into office, it's a whole different attitude, D. It's like, now that I'm mayor, I can't just let people think they can just get me to give stuff out just because they ask. So I would really urge Mayor Lightfoot to fight a little harder to get this stuff out there.
All right. So Mayor Lightfoot now in New York City. Ben, you've been in New York City quite a few times. If you could please give Lori Lightfoot some references, maybe some restaurants or places she should go. Maybe she's a listener here,
Well, first of all, it doesn't seem like she needs any help. I was reading Lynn Sweet. They were hanging out at the coffee shops and Manhattan and stuff. I love Chinatown, man. Whenever I go to New York City, I stay in Chinatown. I love Chinatown. It's shrinking because of their New York City's Chinatown is like our Chinatown here in Chicago, with real estate pressures coming in from gentrification or just sort of pricing people out. But Lori Lightfoot, well, I think she's back home anyway, D. So, but too bad you didn't get to go to Chinatown. I love Chinatown.
She's going to be meeting with Mayor Bill de Blasio in the midday. So
she's still in New York?
I think she's still in New York.
Oh, well, there's a bunch of restaurants in Chinatown. Just head on down to Chinatown. Hunan Gardens is not bad.
All right, so there you are. Just like that, you're now in the know of what's going on locally, and now you'll have an answer the next time someone asks you, hey, what else is news?
All right, let me tell you something. Lori Lightfoot, okay. Steve Colbert, and Bill de Blasio all agree. You did a great job. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. We got Rob Markwick sitting here. We'll bring him on when we return.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. Discover the breadth and majesty of Chicago's architecture on a Chicago Architecture Center bus tour. From bungalows to Bauhaus, our expert docents will share the fascinating stories behind our city's architecture. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm actually on a bus tour right now. Oh my, look at that wonderful piece of architecture.
Cirque du Soleil's Big Top comes back to Chicago with its latest show, Volta. Venture into a captivating voyage of discovery inspired by the adventurous spirit of freedom, where a surge of action sparks a high-voltage journey. Volta. Playing May 18th through July 6th under the Big Top at Soldier Field. Tickets at CirqueDuSoleil.com. Volta thanks their partners Hennessy Black and Champagne Nicolas Fayette.
Hey, everybody, what you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. J-E-F-F. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show.
Yes, indeed. We are back live. With us is Rob Markwick, state representative. I almost said state senator. Boy, I had a Freudian slip. Rob Markwick, the pride and joy of the Northwest Side. And Rob, first of all, thank you for coming into the show. Always appreciate it when you come in.
Always love being here.
And I made that Freudian slip because I was reading in, what was it? Politico, D? Was the story in Politico? Yeah, Politico today, that there's a vacancy now. John Mulrow, the state senator, is moving on to become a judge, and you've sort of thrown your hat in the ring. Just talk about that briefly, the process that governs, that dictates how a vacancy is filled.
Yeah, sure. So what happens is that the moment he resigns, which my understanding will be Friday morning, right ahead of his getting sworn in as a judge, then there is a clock that starts. So 30 days after his vacancy, we must make an appointment. And so the process is that whatever party he came from, then the party leaders, the committeemen from that district will meet and they cast weighted votes. So obviously the portion of votes that lie in their district based off of the last general election. Mm-hmm. And all the candidates will throw their name in the hat or into consideration. The committeemen will discuss and debate, and they'll start casting votes and hopefully come to some consensus on who the candidate will be. And so there's lots of people who've put their name into consideration, many of them because they approached me and I said, if you're interested in running for office, you better start telling people you're interested. So throw your name into consideration. And a lot of them, again, they started with me and they said, well, but I'm for you. And I said, you still need to let people know you're interested. So go through the process. So there'll be a lot of names in consideration. I'm hoping, feel pretty good that my 7 years and the record that I have in the legislature, I hoping that I'll be the front runner.
So now 7 years in the legislature, and so what are it's the ward committeemen? Did you say that?
Ward and township.
Ward,
right? So this
suburbs,
district is probably 65% city and 35% suburbs.
So what are some of the wards who have the major weighted vote?
41st Ward, 45th Ward, which is so 41st Ward is Tim Hennigan. 45th Ward is former Alderman John Arena. 38th Ward is a local guy by the name of Rob Martwick.
Wonder who he's gonna vote. He's gonna get confused.
Main Township is Senator Laura Murphy is the committeeman. Norwood Park Township is Frank Avino, and then a little bit of Leiden Township is Barrett Peterson, who's the mayor of Franklin Park, and then there's just smatterings of other things in there.
All right, little civic lesson for folks. I know our most of our listeners know this, but just in case there's some who don't, a state Senate seat consists of 2 state rep seats, so it's twice the size of your normal state rep seat. So
yes,
you represent more people. So in that way, it's a promotion because you have a larger district. More people will get to vote for you. More people will know your name. On the other hand, you have seniority built up in the House. Your position in the House has put you at the forefront of many important issues, not the least of which is the elected school board and the fair tax. We'll get into both of those. Are you concerned they may lose some of that clout, some of that influence, some of that say if you move to the Senate?
Inevitably, yes. I mean, that has certainly been part of my consideration and part of the hesitancy. There's 2 things that factor into that equation. There's no doubt that I would go back to being a freshman again in the Senate, but I was able to distinguish myself pretty quickly, and I'm not a true freshman. I'm coming in with a record that I think people will look to, and that I think I will still be able to work on important legislation in very short order. The other part of it is this. We have some stars, and I mean stars, in the House of Representatives, young people that have recently won elections. And I think that by moving to the Senate and reestablishing myself there, I'm opening up an opportunity for other people to weigh in on those big bills in the House as well.
All right. And the same bills are at play in the Senate as they are in the House.
That's right. And I have my relationships. I'll be able to help people pass legislation in both chambers. And I think there's a real opportunity for me to do good work.
My God, I'm just thinking about this. This image popped. You've been dealing for all these years with the inscrutable Michael Joseph Madigan, Speaker of the House. Now you're going to deal with Cullerton, a whole different political animal, if you will. In your mind, what's the difference? How do you compare Michael Madigan, Speaker of the House, to John Cullerton, who's President of the Senate?
It's hard to because I really haven't worked with Senate President Cullerton, despite the fact that we are all in the same building and working on the same issues. There really is, each side stays on its side of the building, certainly when it comes to leadership dealings. Madigan has been really great to me personally, helped me with my career, helped me advance, and shown me a lot of confidence. I like John Cullerton. I've known him for a long time. He seems to be has a more democratic approach to the process, and that's probably easier because he's not hurting as many cats as Madigan is in the House. And but they both do excellent jobs with their caucuses. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, hold on. Let me have some. I'm going to drink some Michael Madigan Kool-Aid.
There we go.
Let me tell you something about Michael Joseph Madigan. All right, I just drank the Michael Joseph Madigan Kool-Aid. The guy does a great job. I'm going to get hammered for this one from my friends of the leftist persuasion. I don't care. He does a great job taking care of the political interests of his caucus members. That, in my humble opinion, Rob Martwick, is his greatest achievement, which is probably why he's accumulated so much power and stayed in office for so long, because it's such a great job. And for years, you can make the argument that has been hurt progressive politics because he was reluctant to advance really progressive issues like until now a fair tax, because he didn't want to force any of his caucus members to vote for something that might get him in political trouble. So
and it's one of those things where for every Democratic loss, you can easily blame Mike Madigan. But then if you're going to do that, then you have to give him credit for every great Democratic and progressive victory, including the fair tax and marriage equality and legalization of recreational cannabis. He worked tirelessly on rounding up the votes and making sure the caucus was comfortable with moving that agenda. And so, it's a two-edged sword, but you're right. He may not be ahead of the curve. He may not be tearing down the walls to accomplish stuff, but he sets the stage for things to get accomplished when the time is right.
And he is better on the elected school board than Cullerton. We'll get to the elected school board in a little bit. The games that gets played with the elected school board, that's been Rob Martwick's well, you've been championing that issue for at least 4 years now, Rob. But
5, if not that I'm counting, but I
5
I
years.
do call it my Sisyphus bill.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
my-
Oh, you're getting that up the hill. All right, now let's just talk in the most general terms about the session that just ended. Went 2 days. Am I right? He went 2 days over.
Yes.
Over time, as opposed to last year or the year before with your favorite governor, Bruce Rauner. I think. Remember they went all summer. I want to say.
Yeah, never stopped. Continuing session all summer long, all fall long. It was just nonstop.
All right. So, in your sense, give folks a general idea of what the difference between this session under Pritzker was like in contrast to previous sessions under Bruce Rauner.
Well, I mean, in the most simplest terms, the 4 years under Rauner were completely non-functional. The government didn't function, the legislature didn't function, and important things that needed to get done didn't get done. And I tell people this all the time. I suffered a heart attack in 2016, and I really believe a lot of that was dealing with the stress of knowing that every single day we learned about people that were dying because they were denied services that they were entitled to, and wait, that we were completely able to deliver them, but we were not because of this impasse. Governor Pritzker came in and immediately said, we are going to have a functioning government. And he sat down and he met daily with the Republican leaders, even though he knew that they were never going to, they couldn't join him on his big initiatives because they were partisan initiatives. But he said, I'm going to keep them informed. I'm going to let them know what's going on. I'm going to keep them in the discussion. And so in the end, we had a historic session, not just for the great progressive accomplishments, right? I always say listen, we landed all these planes, recreational cannabis, gaming expansion, the Reproductive Health Act, a fair tax. These are monumental achievements. $15 an hour minimum wage.
Yeah.
Everyone forgets because that was done at the very beginning of the session. Monumental that we could get any of them done, let alone all of them. And yet, probably the greatest accomplishment of this session was that the operation of government, which is not supposed to be partisan, it's supposed to be nonpartisan. Democrats and Republicans all have an interest in a functioning government. And so the operation of government, the budget, the revenue that involved supporting the budget, the capital bill, which is reinvestment in our state, and the revenue that supports capital, was done with broad bipartisan support. And that is the biggest accomplishment of the session.
Well, it's when we pull back and think about it for a while, it just goes to show you what an extremist Bruce Rauner was. And think about it, Rob, you've been around Illinois politics for a while. Illinois politics has always been or the downstate has always been a venue where Republicans and Democrats could cut deals.
Yeah.
All right, and you could accuse them, if anything, overlooking obligations like pension obligations. That would be an accusation that crosses party lines. But they were generally able to reach consensus on things like a capital budget. Yep. Or a budget, you know what I'm saying? And Bruce Rauner put that to a screeching halt with his assault on unions, and I'm always going to give Madigan credit for this. For whatever reason, at that particular point in time, he took a stand on behalf of collective bargaining rights and would not sell out collective bargaining rights to get a budget with Rauner, and he was vilified for it. He was turned into public enemy number one by a very expensive attack campaign by Bruce Rauner. Once Rauner's gone, it's like we went back to sort of the way things were under Edgar, Ryan, Thompson, etc.
Yeah, and you've probably heard this from some of my colleagues, but it's something I'll never forget. The very first day that we caucused, and he had just met with Rauner, and he walked into the caucus and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen," he goes, "make no mistake."
This is Madigan talking.
Yes,
Yeah.
he said, "For the next 4 years, we will be engaged in a battle for the heart and soul of the Democratic Party and the people that we support and the people that we try to represent. Make no mistake about it. We are in the battle. And if you don't have the stomach for this, this is going to be a very long and difficult 4 years." And he held the line on that, and I give him a lot of credit for it. But pivoting on that to how it relates today, let me give as much credit to Michael J. Madigan, John Cullerton, and really especially J.B. Pritzker, because recognize that J.B. Pritzker won by the largest margin that a challenger has ever defeated an incumbent governor in the history of the state of Illinois. We have super duper majorities in the House and the Senate. there is absolutely no motivation and no need for us to include the Republican Party in anything. And yet, when we least needed to do it, we had the most bipartisan operation of our government ever. And to me, that is a feather in the cap of the Democratic Party. After what we'd been through with Rauner, we could have just said, go pound sand. Instead, we said, no, you're back. You're welcome back at the table. Let's work this out like adults.
I got mixed feelings about that. Okay, I hear what you're saying. It's very important. I believe to be conciliatory is a virtue. I believe that to listen to other people is a virtue. But it's always up to the Democrats to play nice. I can't think of one instance where a Republican in this country, in this day and age, Donald Trump, Rob, has ever been conciliatory. Scott Walker in Wisconsin, not conciliatory. Bruce Rauner in Illinois, not conciliatory. Donald Trump, come on. Yeah. You know, every day he wakes up and he starts tweeting BS at the Democrats. It's all about attack. So yes, I hear you. I believe it's important to be conciliatory and it's virtuous, et cetera, but at some point, aren't the Democrats in danger of losing because they play it too nice?
Well, I don't think so. And I think by virtue of the fact that we accomplished so many important initiatives because of our power, we said we're going to pass a fair tax, we're going to pass a reproductive health act. We did that largely by entirely by ourselves, right?
Yes.
So we did pass the initiatives that matter to us. But as I said, the operation of government should be bipartisan. And the worst thing that can happen in this state and in this country is when, and we see this with the nonstop government shutdowns in the federal level, what happened in Springfield, that shouldn't happen. You can't have bipartisanship by demanding it. Bipartisanship only comes when you offer it. And so I'm very proud of my party for taking the high road and offering it and allowing it when there was no need for them to do that.
All right, fair enough. I will point out to our listeners, the Republicans are missing in action on the marijuana bill. Did any Republicans vote for the marijuana bill for legal? Two.
It's a start.
Dude, that's pretty pathetic. They were missing oh my God, fair tax. We're getting into fair tax. Yeah. Zero.
No, that was without a doubt a political calculation. They made that statement very early on. They said we're all 100% against it, and they did that last year too when I filed the bill before Governor Pritzker was elected. On my bill, they came out and did a resolution that they were all against it, except for one. And that was former General David Harris, former Republican state representative, who is now the the director of the Illinois Department of Revenue.
So, in other words, a former state rep Republican was in favor of fair tax. He's no longer state rep, but Pritzker, he works for Pritzker.
Yes, and he was he's no longer a state rep. He was one of the leaders of solving the budget crisis over Rauner's veto. He never came out publicly as, well, the fair tax is the solution to all of our problems. But, and this is what made David Harris such a great representative, was that he said, in a state that has the financial troubles than ours, how do you draw a line in the sand and say, I won't consider a potential solution, right? Yeah. He said, we've got to be open to everything.
Yeah, well, all right, I'm going to give Harris credit. One more time, I'll point out, he got a job. He's now working for Pritzker. I'm trying to think of one Democrat that Bruce Rauner ever hired to. No. But you know what? I'm going to learn from Pritzker. That's the thing about Pritzker. I would always impressed by Pritzker's bill. I tell Dennis this all the time. He could take a hit in the head and keep walking. He doesn't seem like hold a grudge. I told you this the other day. I wrote this in a story. I have a problem holding grudges for like years, okay? Lori Lightfoot, I think, has a similar problem. We'll get into that later. And it takes a while for me to let go. You know, look, I'm still fuming about Scott Walker, and that'll be 20 years if I'm still around, Rob. But Pritzker doesn't seem to hold a grudge.
He is, and I will tell you, I've known JB for a long time. I had the same skepticism that anyone has because I've seen this parade of very wealthy people who have no experience coming in to the highest levels of government and screwing it up, Bruce Rauner. And so I had very big concerns, but JB has been nothing less than a historic governor in his first year. He's passed more legislation in his first year. You can't even imagine anything like that happening. But the way that he did it and the way that he handled himself is like he's like a veteran. I mean, he's just fantastic at it. So.
Yeah, well, he's got an instinct. I recognized that when I first met him. He's just got an instinct, an ability not to make it personal, not to hold a grudge. Like you said, he invited the after 4 years of watching those Republicans gang up on the Democrats, pound Madigan. I didn't see any of them protesting the way Rauner treated Madigan, the way he vilified Madigan. Mm-mm. But it was like it was over. He invited everybody to the mansion and the Gold Coast except for me. Everybody got to go. He even invited Dirk and the leader in the Senate, Brady.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk about fair tax. Fair tax, the principle of fair tax is that the wealthier you are, the higher the rate you pay in terms of income tax. So,
or as I like to say it, instead of everyone paying the same rate, we have lower rates for people who earn less income.
That's a very, very good way. That's why he's getting promoted to state senator. All right. So, but there's tremendous resistance from the part of the Republican Party to this notion, and it was vilified and demonized. How were the Democrats able to hold their party together for what was basically a party vote?
Yeah, and it was a party vote. I think one person walked off the floor and did not vote on the issue, but the 73 of us that were left, we all voted for it. Yeah. And there were people that it was a more difficult vote because they come from more conservative areas. Once again, I will, it was something that we worked hard on. I met with the Pritzker administration, my colleagues in the House, Representative Zaleski and Representative Art Turner, my colleagues in the Senate who worked on this, Senator Toy Hutchinson, Senator Menard, Senator Don Harmon, and we met with the administration 3 times a week and constantly working through this, trying to find a way to get to a path to getting this passed. And it was challenging. But again, I give the administration a lot of credit because when they needed to address the concerns of the members, they did it. Mm-hmm. There was a big concern about high property taxes in some of these suburban areas where there are Democrats representing areas that are being crushed with high property taxes. And Governor Pritzker found a way to make these people feel comfortable by, addressing high property taxes in a minor way now, but opening up the door for to real actual reform as we go forward. And so, it was a phenomenal process. It was great to be part of it. The Republicans are unified in opposition to it. I guess the thing that I would say that makes me happy about that is that their opposition is nothing less than completely transparent, because everything that they say that is a knock on this has just been completely shown to be false. Mm-hmm. They say, this is a tax on businesses, which will be a tax on jobs, which will, cost jobs, and then we'll suffer from it. 95% of the small businesses in Illinois will receive lower taxes under a fair tax than they do under the current flat tax system. They say, this will make it easier to raise taxes on the middle class. That's nonsense. There's no change in the structure on what it takes to raise rates. You still need the same vote totals. You still need someone to propose it. And if a flat tax, if it's hard to move a rate on someone who makes $150,000 a year now, why would it be easier to move it if you're still moving the rate on somebody who makes $150,000 a year? It's not going to be any easier. Yeah. So when this false profession to be looking out for the little guy, when clearly they're being bankrolled by millions and millions of dollars coming from billionaires to fight this, it's very transparent. So I think the prospects for it are very good.
All right, so let me remind everybody, this is just round one. Essentially what the House and the Senate did was pass a resolution calling for a statewide referendum, a binding referendum that will be on the ballot in November of 2020, the next presidential election. And that will be a showdown of massive proportions. What do you see going forward on this issue?
Well, there's going to be a lot of money spent. Again, I think that the good news is that the money will be spent on one side to misinform, and on our side it will be basic factual information. And I think that in the end, that's what's going to carry the day. Mm-hmm. People are going to see through the misinformation. You can't say, well, we say that it lowers taxes on people making $250,000 a year or less, and they say, well, no, it doesn't. And then you're going to look it up and you're going to go, actually, it does. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to win that argument. And I think that we're in a very good position to get this done. It's fascinating. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well,
a little side note about that, talking about the difference between the Senate and the House, I think about, if I go to the Senate, now I carried the fair tax in the House. My good friend Senator Harmon carried it in the Senate. The debate on the fair tax constitutional amendment in the Senate took 9 minutes. In the House of Representatives, it took 3 hours and 42 minutes.
That's the difference between the Senate and the House, right there.
That's right. We like to have arguments.
First of all, there's more of you in there, so everybody wants to talk.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Secondly, there's a lot of people again, as I said, they're in sort of swing districts. Madigan drew those districts very carefully to maximize the Democratic numbers that could win, and that meant that you got a lot of Republicans in there. So, people are protecting their flank by getting up and saying, I'm on for this, but, with nuance it a little bit. But,
yeah, let's just say I did not make the right choice in shoes for that day. I was a little sore after standing on my feet for 3 hours and 42 minutes.
yeah, you should have worn some sneakers. All right, so the fair tax, that'll be a battle going on. You have a little more confidence than I do. I tend to be very pessimistic about these things. In my humble opinion, we'll make one of our famous bets, Rob. In my humble opinion, it's very difficult to get people to vote to impose a tax, even if the tax is not on themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I just watched a tax go down in California and Los Angeles. A tax that was intended to provide to increase property taxes to provide for the public schools. It went down, and that reminded me once again, it's how difficult it is to get people. That's why Mayor Daley always stayed away from referendums like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be a real challenge. I'm optimistic because it's something that, I campaigned on 8 years ago. It's something that I filed when people told me it was crazy to even file it and keep advancing it. So I feel like it's on a path. And again, I think that we have a governor who is willing to commit substantial resources to making sure that the people are informed. Without the information, I think it's dead.
All right. Now let's go to the gambling bill. You and I talked briefly about this the other day. I have a lot of issues with the gambling bill. This is a massive expansion of gambling in the state of Illinois. ProPublica had an article. I think there was we're now the Midwest capital of gambling. I think that's what the headline was. It's not that I'm against gambling. It's not that I want a prohibition on gambling. I'm just troubled by the fact that the state is relying more and more on something that's so clearly a regressive tax, because it's a tax on suckers who should know better but don't. The odds are completely stacked against them, Rob, when they go to a casino or they bet on any bet, really. I mean, the reason why casinos make money is because the odds are in their favor. Do you have mixed feelings about this as well?
Yeah, and I've often said to people that if I could be emperor of the world for a day, and this is important because that's what it would take, emperor of the world for a day, I would ban gambling. But I can't be emperor of the world for the day, let alone president of the United States, let alone governor of the state of Illinois for a day at this moment. And so the idea that you're going to suddenly turn the tide on gambling, you're not going to. Gambling is everywhere. Yeah. You can gamble everywhere. You can gamble at your church. You can go play bingo. You can gamble at your gas station. You go buy all your lottery tickets. And I've seen people walk in and say, give me 5 of those and 8 of those and 6 of those. And they stand at the counter and scratch them off and they go, winner! Give me 5 more of those and 6 more of those. So
they just blow all their winnings.
Yes, gambling is extremely pervasive. And to me, I support expansion because we have to be careful that regulation doesn't become protectionism. And really, that's what a lot of these struggles are about. We talked about the other day, is that a lot of the struggles over gambling is protecting whose interests, right?
There you go. Yeah.
And so to me, again, I don't think it's the right way to do things, but as long as people are leaving Chicago, you go down to those casinos in Indiana, it's nothing but Illinois license plates.
Yeah.
Well, if they're going to spend the money.
No, people love gambling.
Here.
Trust me when I tell you. I know this for a fact. I've been around a long time. I've had my issues with gambling. People love to gamble. So I'm not for a prohibition on gambling. I think that would be ridiculous. I don't think it would work. I just think it is definitely a sucker's tax. And I said this to you on the phone the other day. I was struck by the different responses to legalizing gambling, or expanding gambling, and legalizing reefer. there was tremendous, as you pointed out, wheeling and dealing behind the scenes on the gambling bill because there were billionaires battling it out as to who would get the bigger stake in Illinois.
That's right.
But there wasn't the breastfeeding, the speeches about how we're threatening civilization as we know it, like we had with the legalized reefer stuff. People getting up with the guy with the egg where he dropped it in the. I mean, come on, man! It was like you remember some state rep, was a Democrat, I think it was.
Anthony DeLuca, yes.
Was it DeLuca who did
Yes.
it? Okay, he took the egg and he put it in a frying pan. This is an adolescent brain on reefer. And I happen to know a lot of adolescents, smoke. But I'm not saying you should go smoke reefer when you're an adolescent. I'm just saying all the concern expressed about marijuana, but people just, I didn't hear anybody talking about.
No, there was no. And again, I think that's because it's two-part. One is that a lot of people view this as a big change, making a drug accessible to people, and they have their feelings about that. But again, I think gambling is just so pervasive in our society that we've come to accept that it's just normal. Mm-hmm. And again, I agree with you. I agree with everything you say about it. I dislike it. I wish there was a way to make it a more progressive tax. There just isn't, I hate those regressive taxes. I hate cigarette taxes. Taxes. Why? Do I want people to smoke? No. But, rich people don't smoke cigarettes. It's poor people because they have little to do and they can't afford to do all the fun things that rich people can do. And so they have little minor pleasures, and we're like, oh yeah, don't you dare do that. I always joke about it when I was talking about the cigarette tax. I say, you know what that guy does that works in my district? That guy was a painter, and he works about 65, 70 hours a week, and he's on a Friday, he's all covered with paint, and he gets in his truck, and he's driving home, and he's stuck in traffic, and he gets on his cell phone with his wife, and he says, honey, I've had it. It's been a tough week. Pack up the kids, pack a bag. I'll meet you at the airport. We're going to head over to Belize for a weekend. We'll relax on the beach. And see, actually, he doesn't say that, Ben. What he says is, honey, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Get the kids in their pajamas. Uh-huh. I'm going to order some pizzas.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick up a case of beer and a carton of smokes. And when we get home, we'll watch we'll watch something on Netflix,
yeah.
right? And what we as a government say is, you poor schlub, we're going to tax the bejesus out of you from every way till Sunday. We're going to get your cigarettes, we're going to get your beer, we're going to get your Netflix, and it's like, come on. Yeah. So yeah, I'm very sensitive to that. I hate that, and that's what I hate about gaming expansion. But like I said, I think people have just come to the point that we accept that we might as well, if we're going to have it, we might as well maximize our revenue.
Absolutely. And I just want to point out the Republicans' tremendous resistance to a fair tax, to increasing the income tax on the highest earners in the state of Illinois. Tremendous opposition. Not one Republican voted for that. But there was Republican support for the gambling expansion.
Oh, yeah.
There was big Republican support for the gambling expansion. So interesting attitudes, contrasting attitudes that the Republican Party, Rob Markwick, has to taxation. They're against it when the rich are being taxed, but they're not so much against it when it's a regressive tax. Isn't that
Not
interesting?
at all. Yep.
All right. Now let's talk about the elected school board. This has been 5 years, I think you said, that you've been pushing for the elected school board. There's some irony, I guess, that you're hoping to move to the Senate because traditionally Madigan greenlit it in the House, and then it would go over to the Senate. John Cullerton would block it generally as a favor to Mayor Rahm. And now you're going to go to the Senate, so maybe it'll be reversed. Let's talk about the elected school board tax. Oh, elected school board tax, man. Got tax on that. The elected school board bill. What happened? How did that get blocked this time around?
Well, my understanding is, and it's only from what I've read in the newspapers, was that Senator Cullerton, the president, suggested that he stop the progress of the bill at the behest of Mayor Lightfoot. Mm-hmm. She has said she doesn't like the structure of my bill, which is fine, and she wants to create a different structure, and she wants to work with that. Again, I'm of course happy to have those conversations. I had asked the speaker, and I will ask the Senate president for the opportunity to be involved in those discussions, because I didn't just fall off a turnip truck and say, "Ooh, look, I found an elected school board bill." It was 5 years of work, bipartisan negotiations, and the structure of the bill that I came up with was designed to address concerns that people had, making sure this is supposed to be an elected representative school board, not an elected school board, elected representative school board, making sure that the rich, diverse culture and demographics of the city of Chicago were properly represented before the school board, and that we limited the influence of outside money. And so that's where I came up with my structure to address those problems. If the mayor has ideas for a solution that will do that, and again, like I say, this passed the House 110-2.
Wow.
And every time it's passed, 3 times by 3 different legislatures, by overwhelming majorities, and so it's not like it's a crazy idea. It's something that's been well vetted. But I'm happy to hear and sit down with the mayor and talk about solutions and compromise and address her concerns, because maybe there's something I haven't thought of. So I look forward to that opportunity. I joked with somebody the other day. I said, I wonder if I can get the Senate sponsor to give up sponsorship to me if I make it to the Senate, and then maybe I could be the first person in the history of Illinois to pass a bill in both the House and the Senate in the same year.
Yeah, that would be like someone getting traded in a baseball and hitting a home run in the National League and a home run in the American League, something like that.
It would be more like being traded in the middle of the game, throwing the pitch, and all the pitches in the air, changing uniforms and hitting a home run. Yes,
that would be an interesting thing. Limit the influence of outside money in school board elections. How would your bill do that?
Well, I think that's important, and there are many different ways to do it, but a lot of the ways that people talk about, like, well, let's do public financing of elections, and I'm like, that's a great idea, but we don't generally do that in Illinois right now, right? Mm-hmm. We don't do it at all. So without recreating the wheel, using the existing laws that we have, to me, the bad example is Los Angeles. Los Angeles ran 7 school board members at large. The Koch brothers came in and they bought up every single seat. They spent $2 million per seat on those elections, and they own the entire elected school board.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to avoid. And so the answer is don't have massive districts. The answer is have smaller districts. And so there was a big discussion about what's the right number. President Cullerton at one point believed that 14 would be the right number. Some people have suggested it should be no more than 7. I think that's problematic. I picked out 20. 20 is roughly the size. If you had 20 school board members, the districts would be roughly the size of state rep districts, which means you still can win through grassroots organization, and money is going to play a role, but it's going to be a lesser role.
Mm-hmm. And you said elected representative school boards. What do you mean when you put that word representatives in there? What exactly does that mean to you?
Well, that's key. I mean, the mission for the last 10 years by the myriad of groups that have grown up around advocating for education in Chicago have demanded an elected representative school board, not an elected school board. They want an elected representative school board, meaning that the educational challenges of Englewood are not the educational challenges of Saguenash. Mm-hmm. And so we need to make sure that each area of the city has their concerns addressed at the school board. They can elect someone who understands what the problems in their districts are. And just having an elected school board doesn't do that. It needs to be representative.
All right, yeah. And I now must make a correction and an apology to Rob Martwick. Here we go. He knows what's coming. I talked about this last week a lot. Last week I wrote a column in The Reader where I was talking about the need to have an elected school board, even though I I like the appointees that Mayor Lightfoot put on the current school board. I think a big improvement over Rahm's school boards. But you can't always expect the mayor to make the right choice. And in a democracy, we should have an elected school board. As a principle, I'm for an elected school board. And I positioned that my point of view was that part of the reason she is opposed to it, at least at this moment, is because you're proposing it. And part of that has to do with a moment from the first campaign before the runoff where you showed up at a press conference and to voice your concern or your opposition to what she was going to, her opposition to your bill. And I said you heckled her in the column, and that was wrong. You did not heckle her. You voiced your opposition. So I humbly apologize to you for misusing mischaracterizing what you did.
Ben, you never have to apologize for what you did. I appreciate that. It's good of you. That was a moment that I wish I could take back. It was not something that I appeared in a good light, and that's not something I'm very proud of. I never went there to heckle her. I went there to hear what she was saying about my bill, and then I offered an explanation. After it was all over, and it turned into what it turned into, and it's one of those things that I've said from that day forward. I have nothing but the greatest respect for Lori Lightfoot as a person, and certainly early on the way she's conducting herself. She is smart, she is ambitious, she really has the ability, I think, to be a great mayor, and I want to help her with that. I just, I hope I can get past this. I hope she can too.
All right, let me, Lori Lightfoot, I know you're a big fan. You're listening. Come on, let it go. He said, "Oh, he's a good guy, Mark. All right, he let it go. All right." I've been known to hold grudges for a long time. Don't emulate me, Lori Lightfoot.
Thanks,
So anyway, Rob Markwick. All right, before I let you get out the door, I got to talk a little national politics with you. I'm utterly obsessed with this upcoming presidential race. Yeah. You're a Democratic committeeman, so you follow Democratic politics. I asked you before we went on the air who you supported 2016, because I always forget who people supported, and you were a Hillary person. So what's your sense now as we head into campaign season?
It's such a crowded field, and there are so many people that bring so many good things to the table. I really would like to see a process where we start to unify sooner than later. I don't know if that's possible, but I hope we can, as a party, start settling on a choice, and maybe these early debates will start to thin the field a little bit. But I really like all of the candidates. Certainly, it's a diverse field. I think Joe Biden stands out as something very different. I don't know if he's the right candidate or not. He's certainly knocking it out of the park with fundraising. God bless him for that. Mm-hmm. But whoever it is, we're at one of those points where, and I mean this, I don't like, this would be something I might have said about George Bush, either one of them. Mm-hmm. But realistically speaking, we can look back in retrospect and say George Herbert Walker Bush having a second term would have not been the end of our country. It would not have been a threat to democracy. You've got a president in there who really is tearing at the fabric of everything that made this country great, not now, but over the course of the last 250 years. He is attempting to tear down the sanctity of journalism as the fourth estate. He is attacking immigration that built this country. He is dividing people on issues that are just and on top of that, the way that he conducts himself is just offensive. George Herbert Walker Bush, Ronald Reagan, whatever I may have disagreed with those men, they were gentlemen. They were statesmen. Mm-hmm. Right? I could be proud, even if I didn't like them personally or politically. I could be proud of my country when they were serving as president. But this has got to end, and we've got to find the candidate to do it.
Yeah. All right. And it's interesting that Democrats. Who was I just hearing this saying that it's got to be more than about bashing Donald Trump. They have to offer something. I get into that a little bit when I talk about what they offer, but I in a fundamental way, I disagree with that. I think that ultimately it is about Donald Trump, and I do believe that there is a difference between the Democrats and Republicans. But traditionally, Rob, when you have a strong economy, the country re-elects the president. That's the tradition. So I think what we're really asking people to do is consider beyond the economy, beyond the issues, and think about what you're talking about, just the way a person conducts himself in office, and just how they deal, factual things, like how much they lie and just openly lie.
Yeah.
So I actually do think it is about Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of time for the economy to change between now and the election, and I don't hope that it does. But again, I'll just look to a recent election where we had someone who was very similar to Donald Trump, if not with all of the dramatics. But Bruce Rauner was very much like that, very divisive and really attacking at the core of what Illinois has always been. And J.B. Pritzker did not make his entire campaign about beating up Bruce Rauner. He did that without a doubt, and I think he should have, and I think it was the right thing to do. But he also did offer a vision of a different Illinois and how we could solve problems, and how we could fix things and move forward. And like I said, I think people are looking for that. I think they're looking for a little hope. Especially the middle. I think the middle looks at the what's going on in Georgia and Alabama and in Missouri with abortion, and they think to themselves, wait, hold on a second here. The discussion is now turned, and this is said often, and I said it the other night on an interview, when Roe versus Wade is overturned. And people go, wait, you mean if? I go, no, when? When? Because it's an inevitability. And I think that that's going to really start to hit home with people that these are big changes. This is turning back the clocks on a lot of progress that we've made in our country. And I think that there's an opportunity to show how that's bad and how there is an alternative. So I hope that that's the message, not just beating up on Trump, but showing an alternative vision.
And speaking of alternative visions, I got to give credit to this man over here. Dennis has long said that the Democrats can win if they have a candidate who advances health care for all. And that's a very important issue at this stage of our country's development. It was a little radical in 2016. It split the party, the Democratic Party. The Hillary people were saying Bernie's offering too much. That's going too far when he talked about his Medicare for all. The way I look at it now, Rob, I do not believe the Democrats can afford to go into the 2020 election after their convention in Milwaukee split on this issue, where you have the nominee being against a Medicare for all or a single payer system, and 3/4 of the party in favor of it.
No, I think it's a big issue. It's going to continue to be a big issue. I tell people all the time, it's one of those issues that I don't understand how we're not addressing it. I'm an attorney. And in my law practice, I have health insurance. And between my wife and my son and I have to spend $21,000 out of my pocket before my insurance really gives me any sort of significant coverage. And my wife and I were sitting around the other day thinking, who the heck can afford this? Wow. I mean, healthcare, it continues to destroy the lives of people. It wipes them out. You get sick and you are wiped out. And that is something that's got to change in this country. And I think that that's an issue that everyone is going to understand. They're continuing to understand it. They're continuing to feel the pinch. And meanwhile, the Republicans are talking about,
getting rid of what we have.
Rid of what we have.
Yeah, because they still hate Obama. Wait a minute. Now, have you changed? Have you sort of evolved on this issue from 2016? What was your position on this issue in 2016?
I've always been for. In my position in 2016 was never one of an emphatic position because of the fact that I'm not an expert on things healthcare, right? So I don't know. But I am absolutely for, when Obamacare was originally conceived and we were talking about a government option, we were talking about a single payer. Those are the sorts of things that I absolutely believe that we should be moving towards. A Medicare for all certainly makes a lot of sense. I think that people have to know that the government is their back, right? That's the whole point of, if government doesn't exist to support people when capitalism cannot, right? We are a society where our government has always been the backstop to capitalism. We've always said we're a capitalist country. Go make your money, make your millions, make your billions. Heck, make your trillions. But we're going to have a backstop for the people who can't keep up. And right now, what we've done with the healthcare industry is we're leaving the common people behind. We're saying, you can't afford it? Tough luck for you. And that shouldn't be what it should be. So whatever we design in this system, like I said, and I'm not an expert on it, but there has got to be a backstop so that people can have it. That's what Obamacare was designed to do, and I truly believe that if it hadn't been screwed with, if it had been given, and I said the day that it passed, it's going to take 10 years before we know whether or not this will work, but it just got immediately attacked and diminished, and the things that they did, even the negotiations before it was allowed to pass, were setting it up to fail, setting it up to fail. So we've got to commit to making something that works, and Again, it's got to be the Democratic Party because I think the Republicans they're backed by the money and they don't want it.
Well, the Republican Party is in such a bizarre situation, and it goes back to Trump. Why everything really comes back to Trump. Trump, I don't know if it was a tweet or an interview talking about his health care plan. He has no health care plan.
Right.
All right. But it was a classic Trump where he was speaking in superlatives about something that didn't exist. I got the best health care plan. It's going to be a wonderful health care plan. It's going to be better than the Democrats, way better than Obamacare. He's got nothing. This guy's been in office for 2 years. He's got nothing, absolutely nothing, Rob.
Yep.
And so anybody who believes him is a fool. Do you follow what I mean? It's just, I hate to say it, but if you're going to follow, you talk about gamblers, it's putting more good money, you're throwing it down a hole.
Yeah, somewhere P.T. Barnum's going, man, if I had a little bit of what Donald Trump had, I could have really been successful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just Donald Trump, the sucker's born every minute. Donald Trump, everyone's a sucker.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Well, the biggest sucker is in many ways the Republican Party because, the point I was going to make is that you talk about the Republicans in this state, their opposition to a fair tax. They're just going to, that's their position. They're going to go down. They're going to go down with that one, Rob.
They're against a tax cut for everyone making $250,000 a year less.
Yeah. Because they're against raising taxes on the wealthiest. So they're against a health care plan. They're going to go down. That's going to be their position as we head off into this next election. And like I said, I don't believe it's a winning strategy for the Republican Party, and I really believe it only would work for the Democrats if they're united on that one.
Yep,
so,
I agree.
All right, that is Rob Markwick. He is a state representative as we speak from the northwest side of Chicago. Maybe the next time you come on this show, you'll be a state senator. When is that vote going down, Rob?
It's going to happen sometime within the next 30 days or so, and we'll see what happens. I mean, it would be wonderful if I could make a transition to the other chamber. If not, I've had a great 7 years in the House, and I look forward to passing even bigger initiatives.
Yeah, so you're not leaving the House, but okay, you just got elected.
Yeah,
I remember you coming on my old show right before the election.
That's right.
All right, Rob Markwick is his name, state representative Northwest Side, soon be state senator, I think. Rob, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
All right, that's Rob Markwick. I'm Ben Joravsky. Kristen Kaza sitting right there. We're going to bring her on when we return.
The Ben Joravsky Show is supported by the Northwestern Summer Writers Conference. Now in its 15th year, the 3-day conference held in Chicago features a diverse array of workshops, speakers, discussions, and readings. Learn more at sps.northwestern.edu/writers.
Hey! Playing now at Steppenwolf Theater, the world premiere of Ms. Black for President. It's inspired by the true, that's true as in it really happened, TRUE story of Joan Jett Black, America's first drag queen presidential candidate. You know who created it, D?
No.
It was created by Tony nominee Tina Landau.
Oh.
And you know who else created it?
No.
Oscar winner Terrell Alvin McCraney. You know him, Moonlight.
Oh, yeah.
For tickets, visit steppenwolf.org. That's Steppenwolf, like the rock group from the 60s.
Hang tight, millennials. Hey there, producer Dennis here. Thanks for finding and listening to the brand new Ben Joravsky Show. All right, so here's how this works. The Ben Joravsky Show live streams on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Once the show is over, you can listen to the replay on our YouTube channel, or we throw it online for you to download by 4 p.m. Where can you download the Ben Joravsky Show, you may be asking yourself? Well, you may be asking yourself a fantastic question. You can find previous Ben Joravsky shows and guest interviews through several outlets. The Chicago Sun-Times Online, chicago.suntimes.com, the Chicago Reader Online, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, pick one. Just search for The Ben Joravsky Show. Jora, V as in victory, SKY. So, let's recap. Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Live streamed on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel and downloadable by 4 at chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcast. Yes, The Ben Joravsky Show is back. We're live and downloaded. Tell your friends and enjoy the rest of the show.
All right, everybody. Hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky show for, what is today? Tuesday, June 18th is moments away. But before we get into that, we would like to thank the following unions once again for jumping on board and helping bring back the Ben Joravsky show. First up, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. A giant thank you once again to those unions for jumping on board and helping bring back the Ben Joravsky show. And of course, today's program is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Hour number 2, let's go. It is Tuesday, June 18th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, Kristen Kaza of the Chicago Reader will join us, and it's Jerry Brown and Tom Shepard. Around here, we call them the South Side Political Know-It-Alls. And now your host, Chicago South Side, North Side, East and West Side Know-It-All. He knows all the sides. Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Yes, indeed. Rob Markwick has left the building, and the know-it-alls are on deck, ready to come on. Tom Shepard and Jerry Brown. I love talking politics with these guys. Southside Political Know-It-Alls, in honor of the Cubs Sox series that's coming up, which I hate. I hate the Cubs Sox series. That's a whole other story. I thought I'd bring in the political know-it-alls from the South Side of Chicago. They know more about South Side political politics. Know more about South Side politics than anyone alive. Tom Shepard, Jerry Brown, bring them on. Have a nice little debate about all kinds of politics, but a little heavy emphasis on the South Side. So we're going to bring them on. Kristen Kaz is in the studio right now. Before I bring her on to talk about what the readers got going on, what do you got for me, boy?
2 updates here. First up, Thursday and Friday. This Thursday and Friday, there will be no full 2-hour live show. No.
What?
What? Yeah. Like,
what?
Oh, I hope you know this. Ben is headed out of town.
Yes, sir.
But what were you going? If
Wait,
you don't
hold
mind
on,
sharing
man.
with the audience. He's putting on the sunglasses.
Hollywood.
Oh, man.
Hollywood swinger.
Going to Hollywood. Oh, next week he won't be singing that song, guys. Yeah. Don't worry. And also don't worry, because we have been busting our buns behind the scenes here, trying to make up for it with extra bonus interviews available for you to download. Just a heads up once again here, live streamers and downloaders, no live show Thursday and Friday. Taking a little vacation time, but go subscribe to the Ben Joravsky Show at wherever else you download your favorite podcast. Benny J bonus interviews will be released instead of the live shows both Thursday and Friday. Ben, what's in store for these
we
bonus
have
interviews?
oh my gosh, we have Maureen O'Donnell will be on. She's the obituary writer for the Chicago Sun-Times, the greatest obituary writer in the country, in my humble opinion. We're going to have Mick Dumke, Ken Davis. We're going to have Jen Sabella. We're going to have Erica Wozniak. We've got a whole lineup of people that I'll be interviewing, have interviewed for like the next couple days. I'll be interviewing people like crazy. And then you, the master, the maestro.
Who, me?
Yeah, you. Behind the board, wheeling and dealing and working. I don't know how you do all that stuff. Those interviews will pop up on the internet. Thursday will be an interview. Boom, Friday an interview. Saturday. So I don't know how you do that stuff. You learn it in radio school.
Yeah, radio school, you know.
Yeah, man, a lot of good stuff happens in radio school.
So once again, Thursday and Friday, no live show. We're gonna have some bonus interviews for you to download.
Every day there'll be something new in the Ben Joravsky Show.
Look at that. That's all right. That's the promise he made to everybody there. So every day, something new on the Ben Joravsky Show.
Look at the brain on Brad.
All right, now to news that is actual news, I guess, here. Let's see. Donald Trump just announced that Patrick Shanahan will not be confirmed as Secretary of Defense. Shanahan was the acting defense secretary in that role after Defense Secretary Jim Mattis resigned last December following acute and prolonged disagreements over policy with Donald Trump. Shanahan did in fact resign. Translation, he quit. And add him to the list here of so many former Donald Trump employees. The new acting defense secretary is Mark Esper, currently Secretary of the Army. He succeeds Patrick Shanahan, who quit this morning. I give Mark Esper, 4 weeks.
Well, it would be funny if it wasn't so scary because, on one hand, Trump is going through all these different leaders of his Defense Department staff, and in the meantime, he's rattling the sabers like he wants to provoke a war with Iran. So it's scary times. I'm hoping in a weird way that Donald Trump loses interest in this Iranian conflict before he takes us any further down this road, following John Bolton's advice, who seems to have a lot of clout in that administration. So not good, Donald Trump.
All right, so hey, we're going to try and keep you posted on that. Ben, back to you.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to go back to local stuff. Kristen Kaza in here from the Chicago Reader, and in your honor, I'm wearing my Chicago Reader T-shirt.
Oh, I love it. Oh, we're filming.
Yes.
Hey.
And I have a Chicago Reader notebook.
I love those notepads.
Yeah, I love the notepads
They're so
too.
good.
And so anyway, you're here to talk about the block party. First of all, tell folks about the block party that's coming up this Sunday.
Yeah, so for all the people who are watching, this beautiful ad that was designed by, speaking of Southside, a Southsider, queer Southsider, Sam Kirk, amazing artist. She designed this beautiful art. It's this Sunday, Southside shout out at Mars Community Brewing. And it's 1 to 9 p.m. It's all ages. Kids under 10 are free. And it features entirely 100% LGBTQ Chicagoans. So rather than booking people from outside of the city, we've booked everybody from Chicago, and they are, I think, almost everyone except one act are LGBTQ queer and trans folk from Chicago. So, putting our money where our mouth is, partying with a purpose. And it's this Sunday. We have Lucy Stool, who's on the cover of The Reader. It's been a very popular issue. She's Chicago's drag mom. She's hosting a history of Chicago drag. That's going to be amazing. She's going to have queens and kings that are in their 60s that are going to be a part of that show. It's going to be really special. A lot of things happening. We're starting with drag queen story time for the kids in the morning. But what I'm super excited about is we're ending the day with a live full band Janet Jackson tribute.
Oh, wow.
Because Janet has been an incredible icon to the LGBTQ community for decades. She didn't get her due for so many things, but we felt it was really important, especially with the 30th anniversary of Rhythm Nation, to do a little tribute to a true icon and advocate to the community.
Yeah, no, she's worse than to get her due. She got the bum end of the deal back in with Super Bowl.
That's right. We still got a lot of making up to do for that one.
Yeah, I mean, what's his name? Justin Timberlake. It didn't touch his career.
No, of course not. His just kept soaring.
Yeah.
So, that her album that had come out, which is actually an incredible album. The band and I were talking about this in rehearsal the other day, Demita Joe. It's very, very good. And it was banned from a lot of stations because of that controversy when, she did not, that wasn't her fault. That wasn't her mistake. But again, an example of sexism and...
Wait, time out. Now, let's go back in time to this because I do remember this.
Yes. The ripping.
Yeah, I remember it very well. And so, okay, help me out here. Do you think that was staged or do you think that was an accident?
I 100% do not think that was staged.
So you think it was an accident?
No, of course of course. And I think that what's so incredible about Janet Jackson, she never dragged Justin Timberlake for that. She really took a Michelle Obama when, they go low, we go high. And she, even on Oprah, when Oprah asked her about it, it had such an enormous impact on her career. And I think it's only just starting to have that conversation again because of the broader conversations we're having about, exploitation of people of color in culture. And now the conversation's sort of coming back around. She's got her Vegas show. She's got a residency in Vegas, which is amazing, and she's doing fabulous. But, the people who love Janet love her. She's an icon. I mean, in this case, why we decided to do this dedication to her is, usually Madonna and Lady Gaga and, white women getting a lot of credit for being allies. But Janet, during the 90s, when she put out The Velvet Rope, I mean, that album was so groundbreaking. She was talking about AIDS and same-sex love, and she was really, she didn't change the lyrics on Tonight's the Night when she did that cover of Rod Stewart's. She didn't change the pronouns. I mean, that was groundbreaking. So just one of the really important examples of how she unapologetically advocated for the community. She's done a ton of advocacy for HIV/AIDS awareness and fundraising. And Together Again, the song Together Again is a song that she created to have a hopeful and loving song about folks that passed from HIV.
Yeah, Janet Jackson. Yeah, so in 2004 when it went down, it was 2004, I want to say. It was like her career suffered, but nobody, Justin Timberlake, it was like he wasn't even on stage with her.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but help me out here. Did he ever speak out on her behalf, or did he just kind of pretend like the whole thing didn't happen and he just went on his merry way? Am I being unfair to Justin Timberlake?
Well, you're asking the wrong person, because when
not a
it
Justin
comes down to a
Timberlake.
controversy between a white man and a black woman, I'm probably always going to side with the black woman. But, I think you can just look at what happened with the career. I think this is a bigger conversation if we're going to talk about Justin Timberlake, or we're going to talk about white artists who have an R&B sound, or, have, really capitalizing on what has been built and grounded in black culture. It's not just, he's an incredible artist and musician and dancer. I mean, I think he's an amazing entertainer. But when you are an entertainer who is not black, and you are, really profiting off of this culture, you need to advocate for and stand up for your peers, and they're your musical family and counterparts. And that's one of the issues that I've had with him and a lot of other artists who have really, benefited from the black dollar, or, POC dollar, or the queer dollar, however you want to say, whatever minority group. And not advocated for them. All of these deaths that we've had during this whole Black Lives Matter movement of the last 7 or 8 years, and not speaking out. And, silence speaks volumes. And I think that, to bring it full circle to Pride right now, that's something that is so important when we're thinking about such a important year in history. 50 years since the Stonewall riots, which was a riot, the Pride movement, the LGBT movement, born out of the most oppressed people in our community, black and brown trans women, saying like, no, we're not going to take it, we're going to fight back. And now here we are 50 years later, and we have had one of the highest rates of black trans women deaths in this month alone. Not to be morose, but it's a huge, huge issue. And I think with the celebration of Pride, yes, there's a lot to be thankful for and a lot to be proud of, but it's so important that people and companies and allies, anyone who's considering themselves an ally, and people in the community are talking about these issues and are advocating for the most oppressed within our community.
You know what? I assume some of our listeners are too young to know what Stonewall is. And
Yeah.
So why don't you give them a little history lesson about that? 1969, summer thereof.
Yeah, 1969. I mean, it's incredible when you think about 1969 period. I mean, so much happened that year. Free Street Theater, they're celebrating their 50th anniversary. They're doing 50, just as a shout out to those folks. They do amazing, incredible theater activism. They're going to be doing plays in all 50 wards for their 50th anniversary, including performing at the Block Party, their youth theater, Free Street, this Sunday. But 50 years ago, Stonewall is in reference to the Stonewall Inn, which was a bar in New York City, like many gay bars that were routinely raided, and there was a lot of tension between that said they were going to fight back, and that ignited the Stonewall riots, which then led to the first parade at Christopher Street. And then we had our first parade here too, and it set off this movement across the country, in particular in New York, San Francisco, and in Chicago. So now, 50 years later, that's why if people have been hearing Stonewall or 50th, that's in reference to that moment that has really been marked as igniting the movement for LGBTQ advocacy and rights.
Yeah, and to show you how things have changed in New York, I don't know if you saw this, the current police commissioner of New York apologized for the behavior of the police officers in 69. I saw that in the newspaper.
I did too.
Yeah.
I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a statement. Obviously, actions speak louder than words of, showing advocacy for the community, understanding that, there's a lot of people who feel that police should not be at Pride or in parades. There's been a lot of tension and challenges between police force and queer people, trans people, queer people of color. And so, it's really interesting to see how these Pride parades specifically have grown, and it's wonderful in the sense that we have all this visibility. But, thinking back again 50 years ago, this was started from a riot and from people saying, we have a right to take up space. Mm-hmm. We are human beings, and remembering that was really the origins of what this was about. And I think, it's really interesting. I've gone to a lot of smaller town or city prides, and I really enjoy doing that. I went to Indianapolis 2 weekends ago, and I had an amazing time. We had 16 friends that went down to see Lizzo for $5, and I think she's an incredible, and talk about a great advocate. She's amazing, and it was really wonderful to go to this parade, and we jumped in with Planned Parenthood, and we marched along with them, and there was so much support, and to see that in Mike Pence's state, and it was beautiful. There was so much racial diversity. It was so intergenerational, and there was very, 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 very minimal police presence. I know it's different in a city like Chicago or New York, where of course there's millions of people, but I think we have to start really having a conversation about what does that mean to have enforcements there when you have a community that has had to deal with so much systemic strife and conflict with imprisonment, with the police force. It's an important conversation I think we have to be having.
Kristen, there's also Pride Parade here in the city of Chicago. Will be Sunday.
Right. A week from Sunday.
A week from Sunday.
30th,
so it will not conflict with the Reader Party, I was just going to say.
Right.
So one more time, give people all the information they need to know.
I'll give you the full rundown.
Yes.
So you mentioned the Pride Parade. The Pride Parade's on the 30th. This is a week before, so it's this Sunday.
That's the point I wanted you to make.
There's a lot going on every day in the city for Pride, which is fantastic. There's a lot happening south, which is incredible to see how much Pride activity is happening on the south side. Our event, the Reader Pride Block Party, is from 1 to 9 at Mars Community Brewing. It's all ages. It's wheelchair accessible. It's a $10 donation, or if you have kids and they're under 10, it's free. We're starting with Drag Queen Story Hour, drag queens reading stories to kids. We're going to have salsa and house music, dance lessons. House music, of course, being such an iconic and important thread through LGBTQ and POC communities, and of course, very rooted in the South Side. So we have the legendary Dwayne Powell, who's DJing that, and the legendary Boogie McLaren, who's going to be leading that workshop. We have a live performance by a Puerto Rican artist named Sandra Antion Giorgi. Young Chicago authors, which have a huge presence in Chicago. They're doing a queer hip hop showcase of artists, of queer MCs, and then we're going to finish things off with that live Janet Jackson tribute with a band that's been put together. They're called Femme / All Women and Trans Folk in that band. So it's really a celebration of intergenerational, cross-community effort to say, this is our community. Our community is everywhere, not just North Side. We're North, South, East, West. We're, cross-racial and ethnic identity, cross-gender identity, and that, hopefully there's something for everyone here. We also have a ton of vendors, all small businesses, and it's been a really incredible to see in a pretty short period of time how many people have come out to support it. One other thing I want to shout out, I should have brought you some beer, it's in the car. I'll bring it, I'll drop it, is, I should have come to show this, but I'll drop it to you. Mars does, incredible limited edition beers, and they're so generous. They give to tons of charities. And they have made, with this art by Sam Kirk, is on the cans, and 100% of the proceeds are going to 3 Southside LGBTQ POC focused charities, which are Affinity Community Services, Brave Space Alliance, and Chicago Gay Black Men's Caucus. So those are 3 of 7 organizations that are all local who are benefiting from the Block Party. We have a quarter of the proceeds going to local charities, and then those 3 Southside LGBTQ POC organizations are going to get all the proceeds from the beer. So if you are out buying beer, shopping, and you see the beautiful, there's a few different designs, rainbow designs for Pride-themed designs for the Mars cans, know that 100% of that purchase goes to charity. So that's pretty cool.
All right, very good. Thank you so much, Kristen. One more time, 3630 South Iron. That's where Mars Community Brewing is. That's where we had the Reader election night party. Yeah,
right. We started off with you guys there.
With Maya, myself. That was a rocking party. Anyway, 3630 South Iron, Mars Community Brewing. Kristen, thanks so much for coming on and doing all the good work that you do.
Thank you. It's so good to see you again.
It's the Reader,
for the
baby.
Reader. And shout out to everyone who's doing Pride events on the South Side. Pride weekend, there's Pride South Side, which is all happening the 28th through the 30th. If you don't want to be on the North Side, you're South Side. We're a sponsor of that. It's called Pride South Side. I think it's pridesouthside.org. Check them out too. They're doing really cool work.
All right. Speaking of the South Side, we got the South Side political know-it-alls ready to come on. Tom Shepard and Jerry Brown. We're going to bring them on when we return.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them. ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time, ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
It's Chicagoland's adult entertainment playground. It's the world-famous Admiral Theater, 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. The Admiral is homegrown from Chicago, and it's the most conveniently located club in all of the city. 15 minutes from the O'Hare Airport in downtown Chicago Loop. Voted Chicago's best strip club, the Admiral has showgirls galore and a variety of adult entertainment shows. The world-famous Admiral Theater, open every day from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m., 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. For events, showtime, and other information, visit AdmiralX.com. Must be 18 years of age or older to enter.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. See the city from a whole new angle on a Chicago Architecture Center tour. With more than 85 tours to choose from, there are endless stories to discover. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm on a tour. Oh my, what magnificent architecture!
Today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you in part by Green Element Resale. It's located at 6241 North Broadway in Chicago, and guys, it's amazing. Furniture, appliances, lamps, books, clothes, electronics. It's a thrift shop, but it's the only thrift shop in Chicago that helps bring you the Ben Joravsky Show. So, if you're ever on Broadway between Granville and Devon, tell them thank you. And go check out Green Element Resale, 6241 North Broadway, and find more information at greenelementresale.com. Green Element Resale, it's amazing. Now back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yes, indeed. We are live from the Chicago Sun-Times, and Kristen Kaza has left the studio. The Southside political know-it-alls have entered the studio. We've been billing you guys up. Man, you better not disappoint these people.
Well, we'll do our best, man. We'll do our best.
That is Jerry Brown and Tom Shepard. And when I had an old show on a radio station, which I always forget the name of the station, D. What's the name?
WC, you are fired.
Yeah, WC, you are fired.
The day before we were supposed to come on.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Was it the day before?
The day before we were supposed to come on. Yep.
Yeah, and it's your
December,
fault.
wasn't it?
It was December.
Last time we saw
A day I'll always remember. That was the day that my dad.
Please stop, fellas.
Sorry, an old song. Then I'm the only guy who knows that song. All right. I call you guys the Southside political know-it-alls because you're from the South Side of Chicago and you know it all. So just let's take a moment to introduce you to our new audience here who may not know you from the old show. We'll start with you, Tom Shepard. Tom Shepard from, I always say, Pullman area. And so give folks just a little geography lesson where Pullman is in the city of Chicago.
Well, Pullman's out on the southern border of the city, literally. And thank you. I live in Pullman and work in the 9th and 10th wards principally. So the 10th ward is the far southeast side, most southeast ward in the city, and 9th ward is the farther south ward in the city. Around 100, I live on 113th Street in Pullman, and I've been involved in politics for many years.
Man.
Yeah.
I'm fighting all those fights against land dumps and everything. I read you would be calling me up in the 90s and maybe even the 80s, talking about too much dumping, too much pollution. So he always make me schlep all the way down to the far southeast side. I'm a north sider. Well, I'm actually nothing, but I live on the north side.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Tom Shepard. Jerry Brown, you are from which community?
I am from the 8th Ward, basically Mariner community. 8th Ward is basically 95th on the south, 75th on the north, Yates Boulevard on the east, Cottage Grove on the west. Predominantly all-black community represented by Michelle Harris. And I've been active in politics in Chicago since '74. Used to be a machine soldier. Quickly got dissatisfied with that because I started seeing things working out other than I thought they should. And I've been real vocal about it ever since.
Now, when you say a machine soldier, which ward operation were you a soldier
Well, actually,
in?
I wasn't with a ward. I was actually working with an individual who was basically an operative. Okay, he was an operative for the Daily Machine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and he was in every ward where he was needed. He eventually was the executive assistant to Rich Daley to the pastors. So he was the reach out guy for
Bowen?
to the yes.
Okay. Who you covering up here?
Well, last time I mentioned his name, I got a little pushback from that, because I basically grew up in his house. He and my friends, his sons and I were friends. We basically grew up together. I spent a lot of time in his house, and that's basically how I got involved in it. And and that was much to my dad saying, "Man, you better watch what you're doing. You better watch," because my dad worked for the city for a long time too, and he was never part of that.
But you did not work for the city. You
Never did.
worked for the post office, did you?
No,
not?
I worked for AT&T.
AT&T, my
Yeah,
bad.
never had a political job, never took a contract, never took a penny from government.
Okay,
Never.
But you're involved in politics.
But I'm
Now,
involved in politics,
You
yes.
talk about the outreach from the Democratic Party to the churches. I'm going to ask both of you about this. I'll start with you, Jerry.
Okay.
When I first got to Chicago in '81, the standard wisdom, the conventional wisdom of people who follow Chicago politics is that if you, and when I say you, a politician wanted to get black voters, what he had to do was win over black preachers.
Right.
And I always had a hard time with that,
I
Jerry
still
Brown,
do.
because
I
it's like,
still
are you telling me like black people do whatever their preacher tells them?
In a lot of cases, yes, because the preacher will make you can take anything out of the Bible and justify just about anything. And most of these preachers who are in the pockets of these politicians, that's exactly what they do. And I'm talking about going back as far as Wilbur Daniels and Daley.
Wilbur Daniels, there's a name for the past.
Going back,
on Englewood.
Yes,
Yeah.
Antioch Baptist, right?
That's
there,
correct.
63rd.
They named that whole complex
That's right.
after him on
Right.
63rd Street. Yeah.
He basically fell out with the Dailies when he tried to build those apartments. He couldn't get it. He went to Chuck Percy and got it, and Daley said, "The heck with him," and kicked him off the police board.
Wow. Well,
Yeah, that's
isn't
an
that
old
how
story.
it goes in the city of Chicago?
And then after that, he got Arthur Brazier,
Yeah.
and then now that Arthur Brazier is gone, it continues. It basically continues, and sadly, a lot of people go to these big churches because of their political connections, and you said you got a problem. I've always had a problem with it being, I'm no Bible thumper, but I kind of understand it. And I always thought that the church was supposed to be the conscience of the government, but it's just the opposite, and that's what that liaison to the pastors is all about.
Well, Tom, in your experience, now you does the Catholic Church have that same role on the South Side? That much influence, or not? Does it not have that much influence?
Well, I don't really think so. In my own experience, I moved out of the city in 1976 and moved out to Lansing, Illinois, in Thornton Township, and ran for elective office in 1985, and I was a Thornton Township trustee.
Mm-hmm.
And I did something. We ran as a team, nine-member team. There are 4 trustees and a supervisor and a collector and a assessor candidate. And I did something that the rest of the pack didn't do. I went into the black churches because I came out of Chicago, and I knew that's how it was done. Mm-hmm. And I was the second top vote getter out of the 9 of us, and it did very, very well in the black community because I just knew how to do it. To meet the pastor, go out there, come out with an envelope, and be able to talk in front of the congregation and have his hand on my back, and this is our guy, and did very well. Yeah. And looking out my back window in Pullman there, I'm looking over the huge House of Hope, Reverend Meeks over
Reverend
there.
Meeks, yeah.
And Reverend Meeks, of course, he went on to become Senator Meeks, and then I think he was Secretary of Education under Rauner or something like that.
No, he was the, I could do this. I believe he was the chair or the president of the Illinois Board of Education.
That's what it is.
Okay.
Whatever.
Oh, can I get a little credit for that? Anyway, go ahead.
So, well, he has a huge congregation,
Yes, he
obviously,
does.
and I think in 1999, I think Alderman Beal, who's been there now going on 20 years, was his guy, and I think he helped get him elected over Shaw.
Yeah, the Shaw
one of the
brothers.
descendants
Yeah.
of the Shaw.
I think it may have been the
Shaw
son.
brothers.
Or Herbert Shaw. Yeah.
Right.
All right, you mentioned Beal. Let's just take a brief excursion on that. I can't remember, Jerry Brown, if you're an ally. I literally cannot remember if you're an ally of Anthony Beal or an opponent of Anthony Beal, or you have a neutrality pact with Anthony Beal. He's been long-serving alderman of the 9th Ward, 1999.
I'm definitely not neutral, and I'm definitely not a supporter. I think Anthony Beal is probably one of the worst aldermen this city has had in a long time. And all you have to do is just look at the condition of the 9th Ward.
Pitiful.
It is pitiful, and it has been in a constant decline since he's been alderman, and he has done absolutely nothing about it. You know, he here recently he tried to pump up this whole Pullman Park thing as if this was something that he did and that how it's making the community better, and it's had an opposite effect. It's had an opposite effect. You know, a lot of businesses left because of that Pullman Park. You know, the shopping options are limited because of the Pullman Park, and now we're seeing a destruction of South Michigan Avenue, and I'm sure it's because of that Pullman Park.
In a large part.
Yeah, and I'm you know, I have a very close friend who owns a business there, Edwards Fashions. It's actually his father opened that business years ago when we were in high school. And now
Beautiful store.
Yeah. And he talks about how he gets absolutely no cooperation from the alderman. He's got a like a chamber of commerce over
Business
there. The alderman
association.
does nothing. As a matter of fact, the alderman started his own chamber of commerce because these guys actually want to do something right. But Anthony Beal.
All right, and Tom, you're in the 9th Ward, too. Or are you in the 10th Ward?
No.
You're in the 9th Ward.
Yeah.
All right, because he said he left Chicago, but he moved back, so he's back in. He's been in.
Came back in 99.
Yeah, came back in 99. Let's get that point in there because here, I'm going to play devil's advocate, okay? Which is I'm not very popular with Anthony Beal, but here I am playing devil's advocate on his behalf. Okay. He made an alliance with two powerful mayors. He made an alliance with Mayor Daley, Richard M. Daley, and he made an alliance with the last mayor. What was that guy's name? Oh yeah, Mayor Rob. Yeah. I try to put it out of my mind.
Take a chill pill, man.
That mayor.
No.
So, and the argument has always been, and I've been hearing this argument since I moved to Chicago in 1981. Ben, you don't understand. In order to get something done for reward, you got to get along with the man. So many people have told me that, Jerry Brown. Okay. You got to get along with the man. When you get along with the man, you're the guy who brings the goods into your neighborhood. Do you understand what I'm saying, Ben? I might be like, a young reporter taking notes. Okay. So he made his deals, Anthony Beal did, with two all-powerful mayors. Are you telling me that theory, that if you cut a deal with an all-powerful mayor and you vote the way the all-powerful mayor wants you to vote in the Chicago City Council, does not work to the benefit of the people who live in his ward?
I'm telling you that absolutely. He has been chairman of several different committees. And with what Lori Lightfoot recently exposed about him, now we understand how come nothing ever came out of those committees. He's been chairman of the police and fire. He's been chairman of the schools. He's been chairman of transportation. And none of that benefited the 9th Ward. 9th Ward's got the worst streets in the city. And
I'll vouch for that.
Yeah. and he was chairman of transportation for 2 years, and he got over close to $500,000
and yet the people keep voting for him.
Well, 6,000 votes each time he wins. See, the problem is voter apathy. And because of the fact that he has got this clique that constantly comes out and there hasn't been a real challenger to him, he's been successful in his re-elections. He missed the bullet this time. He really did. Because there was a heck of a guy that was planning on running against him, but he had a small problem, is that this guy's sister actually worked for Bill. And when Bill got an idea or got the wind that this gentleman, Mark Pulitzer, was going to run against him, he threatened his sister that he was going to fire her if your brother runs. He literally said that, and I'm saying this to the public, and he can deny it. Whatever. Yes, he did. He told her that. Now that she actually worked on the transportation committee, but now he no longer has the transportation committee. Howard Brookins has it, and Howard Brookins has hired her, and so now we talk openly about.
All right,
this.
now listen, Chicago politics. Tom Shepard and Jerry Brown just said something. People on the South Side don't vote, and I'm paraphrasing what he said. But I believe he's right on target there. One of the reasons why the South Side of Chicago has suffered so much in terms of getting goodies from City Hall is that people don't vote, and their votes are taken for granted. When they do vote, they don't vote people out of office enough to make there be a consequence to political behavior by their politicians. You've been there since the 60s. Is that your take on things as well?
Yeah, and what we have now, when I was growing up there, we had like 4 local newspapers in the Ninth Ward, and we had the Southtown and Calumet Index, and I can't remember, South End Reporter, and people were up on what was going on in the ward. Today, the Ninth Ward is it's grown. That was another thing that Beal got as a result of his buddy with the mayor, that they expanded it took a part of the 6, took a part of, the wards over there better than I.
Took part of 6 and took part of 8.
21?
And 21, yeah.
21.
6, 8, and 21.
And he took on some influential things, like Chicago State is now in his ward, Olive Harvey's in his ward, Red Line Station
Red Line
at 95th Street.
$350 million wasted dollars.
So even though he had this relationship with the mayor's office, a very influential position and committee, and he might have brought some of the goodies to the ward, but I don't think it got spent in the ward. I don't know exactly where. I think Jerry has a better idea. He's been looking at that.
Yeah, if it did get spent in the ward, you can't see it, and so that meant only a very, very small few people got a benefit out of it.
Right. But I want to go back to
go ahead,
about the communication and the difference between out there and some of the north side wards where you have new aldermen, because people are able to see what's going on. There's better communication. There's more educated voters, and now by us, it's just keep the people with not knowing.
Keep them dumb.
And keep them dumb. Okay, you said it.
The thoughts and opinions of Jerry Brown or Jerry Brown do not necessarily reflect that of the Ben Joravsky Show.
So the point is, if you live at 98th Street, for example, and you want to find votes out in Alkale Gardens, which is 134th Street, people out there don't know what's going on the north side of the ward, or from the east side to the west side of the ward. There's just nothing that connects us all. Everything's disjointed, and issues are different, and it's just so hard to get your message out. So if you have that base that he has, that Jerry pointed out a little while ago, and you just keep that, you are going to get reelected, because other people don't get a chance to know you, unless you got some big bucks.
Yeah.
And nobody stepped up to the plate with big bucks.
Yeah. All right. Now let's talk about Lori Lightfoot's potential impact in all of this. We have a new mayor. She's been in office for about a month and a half now, and she does not owe anything to any of these political bosses. She could do whatever she wants. She won 75% of the votes citywide, won pretty much every ward. She won every ward in the city by at least with 70% of the vote. Yep. So what kinds of changes do you anticipate, Jerry Brown, if changes at all?
Not much. You just had Representative Martwick in here, and he's been pushing for a elected school board. And we thought that Lori Lightfoot wanted an elected school board, but she got rid of the old board and handpicked her own. So how come she's not pushing this? Question number one. So that's not a change that we're seeing. She's doing some things that's kind of Romconian, if you want to be. You can't go on vacation, but I can go be on TV. What kind of stuff is that, man? That's the kind of things we were experiencing in the past.
Now, Ben Joravsky, as someone who drinks the Lori Lightfoot Kool-Aid, how do you feel about that statement just made?
Well, I actually, hold on, let me have some of the Kool-Aid, Jerry Brown.
Okay, very good. I'm not finished.
I better hold off and
I'm just joking.
No, keep going. You're on a great roll. Then I'll have the Kool-Aid, and then I'll respond. Go ahead. But go ahead. No, you actually made a very good point when you were talking, and let me just spell out a little bit more. It's been all in the papers. Lori Lightfoot was very critical of the second in command at the police department who took a family vacation around Memorial Day. It was a vacation he got approval for under the old regime, under Mayor Rahm, and so it'd been on the books for a while. And she wanted all hands on deck for Memorial Day, and he went out of town. I believe one of his kids had graduated from college. It was some kind of college thing. And she criticized him for taking that vacation. And then the last couple of days, she's been in New York City. And
she was just in L.A., too.
She was in, hold on, man. She was in L.A. Got to put my shades on.
Yeah.
Hollywood singer. Sorry, just every time I hear L.A.
Didn't Rahm go to L.A.?
Rahm always went to L.A. So, yeah, and I understand that criticism. I have mixed feelings about the way Chicagoans react. I talked about this earlier, Jerry Brown, about how Chicagoans react when our mayors go to New York and hobnob with celebrities. Like, we're like really wowed by it. Like, that's our mayor with Steve Colbert. We must be. I must be something if my mayor is hanging. You're nothing. You're not hanging out with Steve Colbert.
I don't have to pay my water bill now, though.
Yeah, right. I don't have to pay my water bill because Mayor Lightfoot was on the Steve Colbert show.
Good luck.
Yeah. So yeah, I understand. Chicagoans, they kind of act kind of like rubes sometimes, you know, like. But I hear you. I hear what you're saying. To criticize the police gentleman for going on a family vacation and then going to New York, it's
just to go on TV. You know what? I'm an older fella, and I kind of remember back when I wasn't a big fan of Richard J. Daley, but I remember what he did when he took over in '55.
Wait a minute. You weren't around in 1950.
I remember what he did because I read. And also my dad was there.
Okay, go ahead.
And my dad was one of the people that he took over. He got powerful because when he got elected, he took care of the people that elected him. He didn't go out on this thing. He stayed. He didn't do anything outside of this. He didn't extend himself out to the National Party and nothing like that until he took care of the people in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Ward who actually gave him that election. Ben Dawson's people. William Dawson's people. And the people in old Jake Arbery's Ward, 24th Ward. Those are the people, those are the people who got him elected, and he made sure that they were taken care of first. She's not doing that.
Well, let me just read to you a great sentence. I got to give Fran Spielman credit. She's the writer for the Sun-Times, and she wrote a column. We already talked about this, but I'm going to share this with you, Tom Shepard and Jerry Brown. Tell me what you think of this. And Fran Spielman was criticizing Lori Lightfoot for calling her out for making some of the same mistakes old Mayor Rahm made, jet setting out to California, New York, hanging with the celebrities, wearing the sunglasses. And so she says, Emmanuel's nonstop travel, fundraising, and celebrities schmoozing, often on a Hollywood scene dominated by his super agent brother, was one of the biggest pet peeves about his 8-year tenure. What former Mayor Richard M. Daley knew in his soul, but Emmanuel never took to heart, is that Chicagoans believe the sun rises and sets in Chicago. They want their mayor to stay home and focus on local problems. Man, that's a great line. Chicagoans believe the sun rises and sets in Chicago. Jerry Brown just said it. Tom, do you agree with that? That's how Chicagoans view the world?
Absolutely. Richard M. probably, the furthest he got was on biking out in along Lake Michigan there, and
now wait, hold on. Now let me just stop you right there.
The Indiana
Richard
Dunes.
M. was always. Oh my goodness, this is my pet peeves. I am not rewriting history for Richard M. Daley. Richard M. Daley was always going out of the country, flying off on some junket, and then he would come back when whatever he saw in that city.
Yeah.
God help us all. He would bring it in here. Yeah. So remember, that's why with that bullet train to O'Hare. I can't remember. Tom, if it was in China or Paris, I can't remember where it was. Came in, we got to have a bullet train. Everybody, all of a sudden, we're spending $250 million. We're digging holes in the loop.
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that? We already have a train that goes to O'Hare. It's called the Blue Line.
Yeah, it takes an hour and a half.
Oh, let's get into argument. I'm ready to argue at this point, Tom Shepard. So, so Richard M. Daley did leave the city of Chicago, but he had this way of making it seem like he was leaving the city on behalf of the people of Chicago.
Right.
You know.
Right. You see, and that's my point, And I'm sure the old man was doing stuff, but that was never the perception about him. And that's what made people, in spite of all his negatives, people loved him, and that's why he was where he was for as long as he was.
All right, now let me ask you this, both of you. When Lori Lightfoot took a shot at Ed Burke, speaking of a South Sider, longtime South Side Alderman, 14th Ward, Southwest side of the city of Chicago, what was your response, Tom? Were you cheering with her, or were you feeling bad for Eddie Burke?
I began to think about what is contained on those tapes that Alderman Solis had hours and hours of conversations, and I wonder who else is on those tapes too, because I'm curious to see if somebody that we talked about previously might be on there. But yeah, the other thing I was going to point out though too, another big disappointment with many people I know, and Jerry and I talked about it earlier, that Lori Lightfoot kind of endorsed the Obama Library being built out there at
Jackson Park.
Yeah. So, a lot of the people that favored her during the election, during the campaign, were disappointed by that. And a lot of people I know are not talking so highly of her right now. And we know a lot of common
no names
people
mentioned, but we've seen some stuff in the media by some people that saying, ooh.
Well, let me ask you about that. What was your reaction, Jerry Brown, when she stood up?
Well, you know what? I saw that first council meeting as nothing but positioning. Eddie Burke ain't going to lay down. I don't care how much they got on him. I don't care how indicted he is. It's not going and we've seen it before. Yeah. He sat there and said nothing. That should have scared her. Frankly, from a political standpoint. He sat there and said nothing. Come on now. He's got arms that reach, into the courts. Yeah. Come on, people. Let's be serious. They may have him on something. I don't know, again, what's on those tapes. But I'm sure he wasn't quiet because of what's on those tapes.
I got to be honest, I was cheering when now that's just my perspective, but about the time I moved to Chicago, it was right around the time council wars erupted. Yeah. And I really never forgiven Eddie Burke for the role he played. With your old alderman, not literally your alderman, your neck of the woods, Tom, your good friend Eddie Berdoliak, Fast Eddie. All right, now you mentioned the Obama Library. And that, of course, is President Obama's, the center. I don't even know if it's a literal library. Well, there will be a Chicago public branch in there. Isn't that something to get a Chicago public branch? They're only in the city of Chicago. You can put a branch anywhere. No, what we're going to do, people, we're going to sweeten this thing. People in Chicago, sounds good to me. I'm telling you, man, we're all rubes in this city.
Take the park.
Okay, take the park.
Take the street. And then take the golf course. Take it all.
Take it all. We're going to give you a library. Whoa! Wow, a library.
And I can go to for free.
So anyway, I'm sorry, I went on that tangent. But Jerry, my experience has been, if someone from the north side criticizes the city for allowing the Obama Center to be built in a library, this town being very tribalistic as it is, a South Sider will say, stay out of our business. If we want to put a library in our park, we're going to put a library in our park. We don't tell you what you do with your affairs on the north side of Chicago. So, Jerry Brown, you're a longtime South Sider. Do you find yourself having that same sort of urge that when you see someone like a group like Protect Your Park, which is basically North Siders filing suit to keep Obama from putting his library in Jackson Park, do you find a territorial impulse where you say, stay out of the South Side?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I was glad they stepped in. I really was, because of the way that it took place. You know what? From the very beginning, I was upset with the whole process of that presidential center. It started out as the presidential library to get us rubed, get us going, but it was never going to be the presidential library. They made that clear after the fact, after they made the decision who was going to get it. Now, Tom and I both were on the Chicago State team that was trying to get it at Chicago State. If you look at all of that vacant land they got out there in the community where Obama started as a community organizer, why, that was the logical choice to put it there. Land they wouldn't even have to pay for. Yeah. It would have been logical there. So I was kind of glad, just to tell the people, no, we're not going to do a community benefits. I mean, there could have been a better way. I mean, it wasn't necessary to have a community benefits agreement, but still, I mean, because the way he came through and guaranteed 51% of the contracts will go to minorities, but that's always, that always works out a certain way. But even still, now I was glad that those guys stepped up, filed suit. I was glad that they did. Had that group that protested done it properly or followed what the Friends of the Park had done in the past when they prevented stuff going on public land, and which they didn't do, had they followed that, that their template that they gave them, they would have stopped the thing in the first place. But they let it go too far, and it's pretty much a done deal.
What do you think about the library there?
Well, I certainly am in favor of having it in Chicago, and like Jerry said, we advocated for it to be out at Chicago State University, further south, or around Lake Calumet, where there's a lot of empty property, or even on the lakefront, U.S. Steel property there, right on the lakefront. Perfect place, all except for getting to it. That's the problem, and the reason why that hasn't been developed. It's just a little bit too far off. Away
I think it would have been a great idea to have the library down in Chicago State. My choice was on the west side, where UIC had tag team. There was a huge vacant land. I remember I had Ricky Hendon on the show, and he just laughed at me. He goes, Ben, there's no way they're going to put it on the west side. Stop fooling yourself. I'm imitating Ricky Hendon, but and he's right.
But I mean, to be fair, Obama's a South Sider.
Obama is from Hawaii.
Well,
okay? I mean, Obama's as much a South Sider as I'm a South Sider.
He's from South Shore. No, that's his wife. I'm sorry.
Yeah, his wife is from the South Side of Chicago. Barack Obama is from Hawaii. Okay?
That ain't what Trump said.
Yeah, no.
That's a whole different show. I'm sorry.
That's a whole different story. But anyway, in other words, he got his political start on the South Side.
Right. And he was state senator from the South Side, and did his community activism out there. I've done tours with Jacob Kaplan called the Young Mr. Obama tours, and brought people out to all the places out there where where he grew up, and not that, maybe I can't use that.
Yeah, you can't say grew up. Did you take him to Honolulu?
But anyway, so I was certainly in favor of it being on the South Side, and it probably would have made more sense to be over at Washington Park rather than Jackson Park. But there again, if you're going to be using parkland, you're going to have a battle no matter what.
Yeah,
I need to stop that.
But I do want to see it. I want to see that occur more than I want to see Tiger Woods have take over the South Shore Country Club or the South Shore Cultural Center.
Yeah, that's a power grab.
And the Jackson Park golf course.
Now, what's your thoughts about the gambling casino that'll be coming to Chicago? Chicago, all these years, Tom and Jerry, I've been hearing about a casino coming to Chicago. In the 90s, there's always concern about the mob. The influence of the mob. Remember those days? I guess the mob has disappeared because suddenly we're getting a casino coming to Chicago.
They no longer exist.
Forget the mob, then. We're getting a casino.
A little different
They just went away.
It just disappeared. So, what's your thoughts, Tom, about the casino possibly coming to your neck of the woods on the far southeast side?
Well, we're losing a lot of income to Indiana. There's no doubt about it. I go out there occasionally with some buddies, and I used to spend a lot of time at this casino.
Tom Shepard, I did not know you had that bug.
Well, yeah. Off the air, maybe we can talk about some things, because some of the things I've done over the years are now legal, and I used to get arrested for that stuff.
Not until January 1st. Yeah. Technically, it's not legal until, I assume that's the thing you're alluding to, marijuana. But anyway, go back to...
that and the gambling aspect. Now you're going to have sports gambling legalized as well.
Yeah.
But I think that on the far south side, it would be an asset to the community. I don't want to see it at Lake Calumet, because I've been advocating for Lake Calumet to become open for recreation, passive recreation. Mm-hmm. But if it comes out there, I'm kind of neutral on it. We did a tour of Lake Calumet and Lake Catherine out in Palos just a month and a half ago, and brought a bus full of people out there to see what really we'd like to have at Lake Calumet. And then we surveyed them and asked them if they wouldn't mind seeing a casino and a few other things there. And I think out of the 55 people that were on their bus, I think 53 were against a casino and 2 were in favor. So It seems to me that the consensus out there is against it. I know Alderwoman Garza is in favor of.
Yeah, she was on the show just last week, extolling the virtues of a casino on the southeast side.
Right. Yeah. And then, maybe at the lakefront, but there again, you have that transportation getting to it, that issue at the USX property there on the lakefront. So I'm a little bit ambivalent about it.
What about you, Jerry?
Well, I anticipated it coming over a year ago when they were so adamant about not giving us the land we were talking about for public use, and we found out all the little things about the Port Authority, who controls the land that they're suggesting that the casino might go on. I said, no, this is going to happen because that's a municipal corporation unto itself. This is perfect for a casino. That's how come they don't want to give us no land. I think a casino would be good. It would bring a lot of good jobs. It would bring a lot of good revenue, tax money, but it need to be, I don't want to sound like Don Corleone, we keep it away from the kids, we just put it over here. But it has to be, you have to do some thinking in where you place it. You don't want to destroy the wildlife. You don't want to upset residential communities. And you have to take in consideration, the negatives that a casino would bring. But
you should not have mentioned Don Corleone when talking about a casino. Remember, I just got to forget it. Hey, Jerry. That's my Don Corleone imitation. Not a very good one. The ultimate question is: do you think the city of Chicago, the powers that be, and it's actually literally the state's decision, will put the casino on the south side, or do you think it would not the Loop?
Well, not initially. I think there are going to be 4 casinos in this town.
4?
Yes.
Good God.
That. I think this is going to be the new Vegas.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I really
what about the old Vegas?
Well, it's dying. It's dying. You know what?
Are you for real? I hadn't thought about that. Chicago would rival Vegas. In other words, the entertainment industry would. What now? Okay, let me play devil's advocate with you. Why would we have an entertainment industry in the city of Chicago when it's freezing cold here, January, February? What do you?
Hasn't made a difference. Actually, it's been growing, hasn't it?
Tourism, you mean?
Yeah, it's been growing.
So you think that people will come to Chicago anyway? They don't care if it's cold.
That's right. They do. Tourism is growing. 53 million people came here last year. Visited. 53 million. 53 million visitors to Chicago last year.
I did not know that.
Yes, sir.
That sounds like a lot.
That is.
I do not believe 53 million people.
That's what they report. Well, our friend, Mr. Rahm Emanuel, told us that.
53 million? That's a lot of people.
Yeah, 50. And I guess they were basing it on the hotel rooms rented and things like that.
I think Rahm just made a number up. This sounds good.
Rahm wouldn't do that.
Some Trump move. 53 million.
Yeah.
All right. So you think the city of Chicago will become the new Vegas? Wow. I hadn't thought about that. That's.
I'm thinking 4 casinos. Yeah.
4 casinos.
4. One on the south side, 2 in the Loop, and maybe one on the near west side or maybe the north side.
No, finally the west side. I doubt the north side's going to get it. For some reason, I know the north side, they don't want a casino. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
3. Yeah.
Where would they put it anyway? There's hardly an inch.
Well, if they treat the north side like they treat the south side, they'll put it in Lincoln Park.
Exactly.
Literally in a park.
Exactly right.
Can you imagine if the city said, we're going to put something in a park? We're going to put this in your park. Well, can you imagine what Northsiders would do?
Put it in the water.
Yeah, they'd be like crazy protests. Don't put it in my park. But in the south side, sure, put it in our park. Right. We're getting a library. Anyway,
unbelievable.
One last question before we end it for today, and I have to bring national politics into it because I'm utterly obsessed with the presidential race, Tom, and I'm really pumped up about this thing. So, do you have a sense of who the front runner is in your neck of the woods, who people are talking about, who people are leaning toward when in the Democrat? I presume it'd be the Democratic side, not the Trump side. Do you have a sense of that?
Well, I got to say, I hang out with a lot of Bernie people, first of all, and they don't all live in my neighborhood, but I get around to other parts too, and I'm a Bernie person. I'd be comfortable with a number of the top contenders in the Democratic that are running for the Democratic slot, and other people. I think I was listening to a show earlier on NPR, I think, and they're talking about Joe Biden and well, I think it was Tom Hartman on that old station.
Oh, what's that station? Yeah, I forget the name of that station. Yeah, I like Hartman, but I can't remember the name of the station.
Yeah, but they're saying in the black community that most voters would be more comfortable with Biden. I don't know why they wouldn't like Bernie. I mean, Bernie has been, tried and true since the 60s.
Sat engaged by
he's been here. Yeah,
when he was
but that's who
what
I'm
you heard.
behind, and the polls show that he would win in a landslide over Trump, and I'm with anybody but Trump. We just got to get him out of there.
Well, who do you think, Jerry?
I'm kind of torn between Biden and I'm kind of torn between Biden and Sanders right now.
Wow, that's covered a lot of territory.
Yeah, well, those are only two I'm considering.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
And my whole thing is that we have to consider what the 2016 results showed us. Whoever the nominee is going to have to go back into those states that Obama was able to draw Republican voters from, because we lost them in 2016. Whoever the nominee is going to have to go back into those states and get those voters back. Yeah. I don't see super left being able to do that. He's going to have to get somebody that's kind of mid-center, or at least campaigns mid-center. Because the people are believing this guy's lies. I'm talking about the president.
Yeah.
The people are believing his lies.
Which
man.
lies? The one he said
all of
today?
them.
Well, the one he said today contradicted what he said.
The latest
just
one,
believe whatever he's saying.
Right. The latest one is those polls are fake. Get rid of those people.
Oh my goodness! First he said. First they said that there were no polls.
Yeah.
Then they said those are old polls.
Right.
Wait a minute. Hold on. I'm trying to believe what you're telling me.
All those polls.
How can you tell me two different things?
Yeah.
And then he fired the polls.
Right.
Right.
If your intel tells you to hire these guys and then you fire them because of what they tell you, what does that say about how you running this country, man? Do people think that far? I don't know. That's just, I guess I'm cursed with clear vision and critical thinking. I don't know.
Well, I still haven't figured out how Trump voters in North Dakota are concerned about immigration issues at the border. Nobody lives in North Dakota.
Well,
it's like empty state.
Just Canadians are coming, man.
No, they're not. It's funny. The border that's right there, they're not worried about that border. With the one way on the other side of the country.
Bison. That's the bison. They're going to come in. Yeah.
Bison.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's just amazing. You know what I do? And I'm going to be real quick with this. I guess I kind of troll conservative sites, and I push buttons. And you wouldn't believe some of the responses I get, man. Mm-hmm. These people are really sad, man. They believe anything that guy says. I mean, it's like the lie is so obvious. Yeah. I don't care what it is. I did a little thing with the Stephanie Trussell show, and then the day after he announced he was going to call the national emergency for the building of the wall, I come in that day. I was on the show the next day. I come in with a stack of cards. I went through that whole speech, fact-checked all the lies he told. We didn't get a chance to talk about it because she saw I had a stack of cards. Yeah. Unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, no.
Unbelievable. But anyway, anybody but Trump, there you go.
All right, very good. And that is Jerry Brown, Tom Shepard in the studio as well. Thank you both for coming in the Southside Political Know-It-Alls. I'll book you again. I love talking politics with you two guys.
It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. And Kristen Kaz, I want to thank her from the Chicago Reader. My beloved Chicago Reader was in about an hour ago. And Rob Martwick began the show, did a great job, state representative, maybe soon to be state senator. We'll see. We'll be watching that one from the northwest side of Chicago. Leah, magnificent job as always. And of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois, behind the board. Jerry, do you know what they call him back in Alton? They call him White Lightning.
Oh, my man.
No, they don't. They don't come.
Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows at both Chicago Reader and Chicago Sun-Times websites, chicagoreader.com, chicago.suntimes.com, and wherever else you download your favorite podcasts. We're now on Spotify. Tell your friends. Find us at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, at Facebook and Twitter, BENNY, the letter J Show. And hey, we live stream the program Tuesdays through Fridays, 1 until 3 p.m. Central Time at the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel and the Chicago Reader website as well.